We're turning into episode 1 of just a moment in time, because very rarely in a generation do we meet people who set their mind out to do it, and then say, what's next? You know, it's always, I set my mind out to do it, and then they did it, and it's a stop. So before we even get started with even explaining about what we have going on, I just want to congratulate this big ass step, in your life, because
thank you.
This is pretty cool. For those who don't know, we are sitting, I'm like to adjust the camera, we are sitting across from the one and only Tim Terrio of physical therapy, Tim Terrio of artistic, Tim Terrio of just musician, Tim Terrio, the athletic, just historian, as
a little bit here, yeah.
A little bit here and there. First thing, how you doing? How you doing out there, Tim? How you feeling?
I'm doing fantastic today. I'm excited for the next chapter, and I appreciate you jumping in on this adventure. Because
listen, that's always been my thing. I've always wanted to help people reach that next step of whatever that step may be, right? So before we start talking about the steps of what's going on right now, I want to take the clock back a little bit.
Okay.
So I talked about it before. Bring the company. I'm going to bring the people up to breaking the fourth wall. I want to use 1998 as a barometer of just understanding understanding time, right, and understanding reality. Some of the things we talked about before. Let's go back 1998 back. We don't have to go back. If you don't want to talk about childhood, you don't have to. But it's that Dodgers jacket is more. That's what I want to talk about. What was going on?
That was the late 80s. So it's actually the story. My story starts in Helena, Montana. I was born and raised there. Just in high school was a cruiser, right? Oh. I could get B. I think I graduated like a 2.9 GPA. I just floated through.
Yeah.
Didn't have to do much. Played football, wrestled a little bit. Got into lifting weights. But when my senior year, I said, I think I'm going to go to college. You know.
Now in Montana, is that a common thing?
It wasn't. The only one in my family that had gone to college was my older brother.
Okay.
My dad did a few courses, but my mom was a checker for 52 years, worked in a grocery store. My dad had a few different jobs, but at that time he was working at a lead smelter.
I don't even know what that is.
Montana. It's where they bring in the ore and crush it down and then extract the iron and the precious metals out of it.
Yeah.
So that was actually my summer job at going through college, was on the working end of a shovel, which I had several jobs, but
that one, you just had like a little flashback just now.
No, yeah, I did. It was like, there's nothing worse than being on the working end of a shovel.
Yeah. I'm listening to you.
It paid well for that time. But I went and talked to my high school counselor as my senior year was rolling on and said, hey, I think I'm going to go to college. And she said, college isn't for everybody. You should probably look at a career. At that time, I was lifting a lot of weights, and she was like, maybe look at being a cop or something like that.
Yeah.
I was a little offended, so I went home and talked to my mom and dad. I was like, I talked to the counselor today, and she said, people aren't college material. And they both said, yeah, that's probably true. And my older brother had gone and failed out in 2 quarters. So like, look at your brother. He had a lot of talent, and he couldn't make it. So what makes you think you could make it?
So already the cards are stacked against you, right? So I've heard these references. Rappers always refer to him all the time. I think even Biggie talked about that. He said that, my teacher always said I wasn't going to be shit, you know?
Yeah.
And I was fortunate enough, I never had any teacher tell me that, but sitting across from you, you're like, no, Muhammad, teachers and counselors do say it.
Yeah, they say it all. That was 1983.
Crazy.
Of course, I decided to go to college for the most important reason, that my girlfriend was going, my high school girlfriend, So that's a good reason to go to college.
Come on now.
I don't recommend that.
Yeah.
But, so I went, got to Montana State in Bozeman, and it was probably 2 weeks into the first quarter. My best friend from high school was my roommate, and he said, hey, I want to move to another dorm. There's all guy dorm with all the other friends we had from high school.
Yeah.
I said, dude, I'm not leaving. My girlfriend's like in the one floor below me.
Yeah.
I'm staying here. Another great choice in life. So a lot of times it's like we do stupid things, but they work out. Probably 2 weeks after that, she breaks up with me because she wants the whole. So I'm sitting in my dorm room thinking, your counselor told you shouldn't be here. Your parents told you.
And what are you majoring in? What are you majoring in?
Oh, at that time I was majoring in ag business.
Okay.
Because
Wow.
my reality was I was going to live in Montana the rest of my life. I was going to. It's mostly ag and tourism, so I was like, I don't know what I'm going to do. But about that same time, I was looking around. In high school, I hung out between the cowboys and the athletes and the jocks, right? So I'd bounce back and forth, just depending on what was going on.
Right.
So
Depending what season we're in.
yeah. If we're in football season or something, it was the jocks. In the weight room, it was always the jocks, right?
Yeah.
We had a great run. We actually played for the state championship my senior year.
Okay.
I said play for because we didn't win it.
Okay. Okay.
So otherwise, I said we won the state championship.
Right.
You leave those little details out.
You
'cause
have
it
to.
sounds better.
It's way better.
Oh, we played. So we got there, and that was my reality at the time, right? I watched my parents working jobs, and it's like the book Rich Dad, Poor Dad, right? But I didn't have the rich dad to give me an example. I had the dad that said, the secret to success is get a job, work there the rest of your life, and hopefully get a pension.
Right. Playing it safe.
Yeah, play it safe.
But which was very ironic because if it's something I've learned about you, you do the complete opposite of playing it safe.
Well, I'm also the second oldest, so I have that
Okay.
chip. I still carry the second oldest chip on my shoulder.
Okay.
Like, and my friends all joke about if you want him to do something, tell him it can't be done, and then he'll do it.
Right.
So they constantly joke about, oh, be careful when you challenge him because he'll do it just to show you he can do it.
Just off GP, I've seen you do it. Just like you, if you say impossible takes a week, no, hard takes an hour and impossible takes a week. Yeah. That is something that's a Jay-Z bar, but that's something else I see.
And that's I don't know when that happened, but I think the switch was somewhere in college, right? So after my girlfriend broke up with me and I was sitting there in my room sulking, thinking, what should I do? I hooked up with this group of guys on the floor.
Okay.
Started hanging out with them, and they were from all over. There was a kid from California, there was a kid from different towns in Montana, a guy from Wyoming. So all of a sudden my eyes were open to, wait, there's more world out of here.
Yeah.
So when I grew up, we never went on vacation. We went back, my dad's from Maine, so we went back, I think twice in my lifetime to visit his family in Maine. And other than that, I remember one other vacation out of Montana. So that's what I thought was normal, right?
You thought that everybody just stayed within the maybe 400-mile radius of
Yeah,
wherever
you
they
stay on
lived.
your wheelhouse. We'd go camping. We did stuff.
Right.
But everybody's like, oh, you're from Montana, do you ski? I'm like, no, I don't ski because we didn't have the money to ski, right?
Oh, okay.
So instead, we would go sledding in the winter, right?
Right.
Because it was, you buy the $2 sled and go bomb down a hill.
What about it? Was that something later on? Did you get into skiing, snowboard?
No, I never got into it. My kids did
Okay.
years later. But I think that was the first time my eyes were open to, wait, there's a whole bigger world out here.
Yeah.
And that was the same time I was like going to class and hanging out with all the ranchers' kids in these ag business class, and I was like, where's the jocks at? You know, I need to counterbalance this with hanging out with the jocks because I'm a little bit of both, right?
Yeah.
A little more on the jock side than the cowboy side, but cowboys are a lot of fun.
Yeah.
To hang out with, you know. Had some pretty good kegger parties and stuff out in the hills. So.
It's really funny you say that. Like just this between on the other side of what's on the other side of this wall, and
Right.
and it's like literally both sides.
Oh yeah.
It's both sides of you happening at the same
Right.
time. So okay, so now walk me through. The girlfriend dumped you. You're on the all guys floor, and now you're trying to think, what do I do now? Right?
Yeah, and I knew because I was an okay high school football player, right? But I'm also 5'9" and was 200 pounds at the time, like
Okay.
210. So I was
And you
like,
played.
I was a guard at
Okay.
that time. I was a pulling guard. We ran a triple option. Most people probably don't even remember what that is, but it was
I've never heard that
it
play.
was the offense of the day back in the late 70s and 80s. Veered defenses. So I was like, I got a couple offers. Hey, you can come try out for a small JC. I was just like, I don't want to do that. So I looked at what's the next best thing, and I found athletic training, that I could become an athletic trainer, work with athletes, and help them recover from injuries. And all of a sudden, I got in those classes, and it all became easy. Like I always struggled because I get bored really easy in class. So all of a sudden, it was like, oh, this makes sense. This is fun. And it's easy for me for some reason. So fast forward to 1987, in my junior year, and there's another tip, how not to interview for an interview, but the head trainer came to me and goes, hey, what are you doing this summer? I said, I'm going to be on the working end of a shovel again. He goes, well, what do you think about working baseball? And I said, better than a shovel. So yeah, because there's a baseball team looking for an athletic trainer. So, oh, cool. Let's look into it. So he goes, there's a guy coming in that got his master's degree from here. He's coming in and he wants to interview you. I said, all right, cool. So, and I don't know why to this day he picked me. Chuck Carnop was the head trainer. And there was people that had been in the program way longer than I had been. And I was like, why'd you pick me? And he's like, I just like how you act, right? Like, you really get this stuff. And during that whole time, too, I was in a fraternity at Montana State. And I became the vice president of the house. And it was the first time I had a leadership role. And all of a sudden, this house, and it was Animal House, man. This thing was out of control. Some of the stuff that happened shouldn't happen. It would be immediately these days. He'd be gone.
Yeah.
And I was the vice president, so I was in charge of discipline.
Oh, damn.
And I also had to go talk to the dean every time somebody did something.
Oh, dang.
So I was in there giving my sales pitch about why we shouldn't be kicked off campus.
Right, every week.
Oh, yeah.
Every week.
I'm like, just schedule it. All right, who did what this weekend? Because I got to go. I'm sure I'm going to get a call from the dean. I got to go say hi. But that all, just like becoming a leader of the house and becoming a leader in the training room, I was like, wait, I can do a lot more than I ever even thought. So I go to interview. This guy shows up. Stan is a phenomenal dude. Was the LA Dodgers trainer for several years.
So wait, no, hold on.
So
you just jumped over that.
So I thought it was like a club baseball team.
Exactly. The way you presented it just now, it sounds like, a local JC. No, nothing against JCs, but that's the way it sounds.
I didn't even know until later that it was a job with the minor leagues for the Los Angeles Dodgers. I didn't know even until, so Stan comes in to interview me and he's like, hey, can I talk to you we had a little student training room, and he's like, can I talk to you about this job? And I was like, yeah, okay. So when I walked into the room, I hit some charts off the table and they fell on the ground. And I bend over to pick him up again, and he says, bend over again. Oh. And I stood up and I said, fuck you. I'm not bending over again. He starts laughing. He goes, the hell are you talking about? I said, what do you think of Bend, Oregon? I go, oh. I guess this interview's over. I don't think it's not a good way to go into an interview. Just tell the guy interviewing you to fuck off. So he's just laughing. He goes, dude, do you want a job working baseball this summer? And I was like, yeah, I don't know about going to Oregon, though. He goes, all right, let me see what I can do. And then it was 1987, in early part of the year, and then he calls me back. He's like, hey, we're not going to be able to hire you. I said, oh, was it the interview? And he's like, no. He goes, for the old school historians, Roy Campanella had worked for the LA Dodgers and made a comment at that time that he didn't think you'd ever see minorities in management roles and leadership roles because of the system.
Right.
So, of course, being an organization, and at this time, I still don't know that this is tied to the Dodgers. Yeah. So I was like, okay, whatever. Call my dad. Hey, get the shovel ready. I'm coming home this summer.
Yeah.
So I'm living at the fraternity house one day, and it's like probably April, and so we didn't used to have these things, right? You had to go pick up the phone off the wall. Yeah. So they go, hey, some guy from the Dodgers on the phone. I was like, yeah, sure, whatever.
So all your frat guys are the house is packed.
Yeah.
Your VP.
Yeah, and there's one phone.
And there's one phone
on the main floor.
And how many people are living in the homes? So I can
probably 50, 60 guys.
You got 50, 60 guys living in this house.
Right.
You're VP of it.
The bottom floor was 80% bar. It was a huge bar. We had 2 kegs going all the time.
The golden era.
Oh, man,
the golden era. I talk about that all the time. Graduated from CSUB, and trust me, even my college days were just there. The things we were doing,
Right.
like, like it was so crazy. You can get a tattoo on the 3rd floor.
Oh, jeez.
You can get a lap dance on the 2nd floor. And then on the 1st floor was just very similar, all bar, just all bar. It was crazy.
That's what it was.
So, because we lived in co-ed dorms, that's how this is how
okay,
it went.
yeah.
I lived in co-ed dorms, so it wasn't just. So it was really the girls were all on the top, which were the girls with the tattoo, and then the second one, which was co-ed, and then the bottom was all guys.
Right.
But yeah, so I just trying to imagine, scale that up, because there wasn't even 50 people in it. It was probably 25 in mine. So
Okay, yeah, so about, because every room, so the top, we lived in, it was called the Story Mansion. It's still on the historic register of places.
oh my gosh.
They screwed up and lost it several years ago.
Dang.
But it was 4 stories. The top story was the dorm, where
Okay.
all of our beds were. We all slept in there, but then you were assigned by seniority to a room. You got to pick which room you wanted to be in. And there was anywhere from 1 to 5 guys in each room, and that was where the couches were, the TVs, where you hung out. And then the bottom floor, if you walked in, you'd think it was a nice place. I mean, it was like a living room with a fireplace and a dining hall and a kitchen and a library, which will never get used, except for the engineering guys and we'd go by and make fun of them on the way to the bar and be like, have fun, guys. we'll see you later. So it was just an amazing place to live, but the phone was by the front door. So they said, hey, some guy from the Dodgers on the phone. And I was like, yeah, whatever. Because we also pranked each other all the time.
Right. That was like.
And I told them about this baseball job that fell through, and they're like, oh, yeah, whatever. Hey, the guy from the Dodgers on the phone. So I was like, yeah, okay, whatever. So I pick up the phone. I was like, yeah, this is Tim. He's like, yeah, this is Bill Schweppe from the Los Angeles Dodgers. And I go, yeah, right. He's like, no, I'm serious. And I was like, screwed up part 2. So I should have never been hired for this. Screwed up my interview. And then I'm giving the vice president of the Dodgers a hard time. And he's like, no, I'm serious. And I was like, and then all of a sudden it clicked in my head like, oh my God, you're what? And he tells me, he goes, look, you're supposed to be the head athletic trainer for the Great Falls Dodgers starting next month. I don't have any information about you except your phone number. We don't have a contract. And it's going to be released in the next week that you're the coaching staff and the trainer. I was like, oh, man.
This is real.
Oh, this is real. Yeah, all of a sudden reality came crashing down. Like, okay. So he's like, so do you want this job? And I was like, yeah.
Duh.
Sounds cool. So I think that was the next big evolution of my learning experience. Was all of a sudden, I went from a fraternity house to a clubhouse filled with not only people from America, but Dominican Republic, Mexico, all over the United States. Guys from the South, which was an interesting study.
Yeah.
So it was just such an eye-opening thing to see how the world worked, right? Because we had black guys from the South, we had white guys from the South. The white guys, 1987, are still talking about how the North cheated to win the Civil War.
So like, that's still a conversation.
Oh yeah, and
that's a common occurrence.
Right.
Just
still like what? But then we had players from Dominican Republic and their customs, and I mean it was just crazy to me. Like,
but the cool part about it is that the common ground everybody shared was obviously baseball.
Right. Everybody trying to make it. Right.
Right. Or trying to make it.
Like they're all just have that dream. So they have the dream of being professional baseball. But I also got to work with some amazing people. My manager was Tim Johnson.
Okay.
And he had played he had a couple distinctions in life. One was, his first big one was, he's the guy that Robin Yount took his job when Robin Yount came up at 17.
See, all the baseball references are all going to go over my head.
Yeah.
They're all going to go over
Well,
my
the
head.
baseball people, it's the funny part of pro sports that every year when there's a draft, there's that many people leaving the sport, right? They don't grow the numbers.
I never thought about that.
So, yeah, so everybody gets excited about the drafts, but that means that many players are leaving too. So for all these guys whose dreams are starting, there's that same number of guys whose dreams are ending, right? So it's a weird world to be in. And then just meeting Tim and I never was into baseball, so I didn't know what was going on.
Right.
I knew injuries, I knew rehab, but sitting in the dugout and listening to all the movements and all the strategy, all of a sudden it got way more interesting to me. I just thought the guy throws the ball, they hit it, and the other guys try to get him out.
Yeah.
There's so much strategy that goes on, where the pitch is being thrown, how the pitch is being thrown, how you set the defense up for the pitch that's being thrown. So they move guys each play, right? Like, okay, he's throwing outside to a right-hand hitter. The odds are he's going to hit it opposite field versus inside. He's going to hit it same side.
Right.
High, low, the low is going to be a ground ball. The high's got a chance to be a fly ball.
And all of these things are happening at an hyperactive rate.
Right. Yeah, it's just a learning curve. So I'm learning multiple cultures. I'm learning about a sport I never knew about. So go through that year, go back to Montana State, but now I've got a little swag to me, right?
Of course.
I'm like, hey, I'm a professional athletic trainer.
Yeah, come on now.
I got back to school and...
Are you still VP of the house?
Still VP of the house that year. But just my confidence level jumped because all of a sudden it was like, I've got guys, and then being in the Dodgers, it still didn't dawn on me until one day, and we're playing in Idaho somewhere, either Pocatello or Idaho Falls.
Yeah.
I go into the locker room to get something, and Tim's sitting there talking to somebody, and he's like, hey, Tim, come here, I want you to meet somebody. I was like, all right, who? And he was sitting talking to Sandy Koufax, the legend from the Dodgers, right?
So once again, you're learning at this point. This is after your first year, when you're
this is in the first year.
This in the first year, because there's throughout this year. This is one of also not only one of my interviewing styles, but also for me to understand.
Right.
You breeze over things casually that are very big deals.
Right.
Right. So you're meeting a legend.
Right. Well,
Year one.
Yeah, it's like.
So not only meeting a legend, you're meeting a legend while learning cultural differences, while also just having the fears of your first job.
Right.
Yeah,
learn about myself, right?
You're learning yourself. Like this, the difference that year between your first coming out of college and your first year working are substantial. I'm pretty sure you see it all the time with just the people you hire.
Yeah.
Like that first year is.
Oh, it's vital. And I was fortunate because our pitching coach was Jim Brewer, who played Major League Baseball too, right? Knuckleballer. Yeah. So he was teaching me stuff, about working on pitchers and things to look at and pitching techniques. And so see this guy, he's dropping his arm or he's rushing the pitch or he's bending his back leg. That's going to cause this to happen.
Okay.
So these are the kind of injuries you might see when you see a guy doing this. So I'm just a sponge, right? Just like, wow, okay. First of all, you don't know shit.
Yeah.
All those classes, Now it's real world, right?
Yeah.
There's nobody to turn around to. After that, I always laugh talking about students of, you'd be out covering an event and you have student trainers with you and they're always like, anxious and amped up and somebody gets hurt and they go running out there to see what it is.
Yeah.
The head trainer's walking out there. Right?
Right.
He's still going to be hurt when I get there.
Right.
So, but that job, all of a sudden I went from being a student trainer to the guy. There was nobody to turn around and look for.
Oh.
Right? There was no backup for me to say, hey, where's the head trainer at? This is bad. Can somebody come look at this?
Yeah.
It was me. So then then I'm getting calls from guy would get hurt, set him up, take him to the doctor, and then get a call from the Dodgers, the LA Dodgers, saying, okay, what's this guy's status? How long do you think he's going to be out? Do we need to send another player there?
So all this is the back end of a professional physical therapy. I like to make sure I'm
Right.
saying it. It's
Yeah.
PPT, professional physical.
Professional physical therapy, professional athletic training. So, and on top of that, because there was a staff of 3 of us. There was the head coach, pitching coach, and a hitting coach, and me. So it was 4 of us as the leadership of this team.
Right.
So you're learning from all them, but my job was not not only athletic training, I was the travel secretary too. So I had to book all the rooms. I had to handle all the meal money.
Have you done that before?
No.
That level of just
No, all of a sudden it's like,
logistics?
hey, we're going to Pocatello, Idaho. We need.
Do you even know what Pocatello, Idaho is?
I'd heard of it. I'd never been there. So I was like, okay. So you need to book 20 rooms for the players. You got to figure out who's rooming with who. And then every road trip, we'd hand out cash, meal money. Used to be cash. So I would divvy up all the money, put it in envelopes for all the players, and have them sign off that they'd gotten their meal money for the trip.
Yeah.
You know, if it was 4 days, it was like, I don't know, back then it was probably $60 or something that they each got. So it's just like, oh my gosh, you know. And then we'd get there, I'd have to go in, get the keys, assign them. We did play in Medicine Hat, Canada, so we had to cross the border, which is the first time we did
Passport.
it was like, yeah. So they would come on the bus and be like, hey, so what's this? And I said, well, professional baseball team. What are you doing? Going up to play baseball in Canada. How long you gonna be there? Till the series is over. 4 days, 3 days, whatever it is. Do you have any non-Americans on the bus? Yeah, about half of them.
Yeah.
Like, you know, and they'd always
I
be
didn't
like,
even think about that because you
Yeah.
have people coming in from other countries.
right, when you cross the Canadian border. So they'd say we need them all off the bus. So I'd have to get all of the
Non-American.
any non-Americans have to get off the bus with their passports. And I had been warned ahead by Stan and some other people that, hey, and I did have like Stan, I could call him and be like, hey, we're going to Idaho, Pocatello, Idaho.
Yeah.
And he'd say, oh yeah, we usually stay at this hotel. So at least I had some
You had some
guidance.
form of
It wasn't
direction.
like just,
Best of luck
we
to
didn't
you.
have Google back then, right?
Oh
You
my
didn't just-
gosh, I'm still thinking Googling the
Yeah,
rooms.
you didn't Google the rooms. It was like calling the hotel, like, hey, I need 20 rooms for these 3 days. So it was just a crazy learning experience.
So, what's your take on, because I spend a lot of time on TikTok, something that I think, especially this through the duration of Tim's Human Experience, this show that we've yet to even formally introduce, we
Yeah.
just we jump right in. But I like to do the compare and contrast, because compare and contrast of where we are today.
Right.
So commonly today, if I go on TikTok and we talk about, you'll see kids talking about, I was hired to do this, I'm not going to do that.
Right.
That's a very common occurrence. Like, I was paid to do this, I went to college, I know because I went to college, I'm entitled to this, and I'm not required under these responsibilities.
Yeah.
From the way it sounds, that you didn't have that mentality at all, because that's a whole other job in itself. Just
yeah.
booking and travel is a job within itself.
Right.
So now, not only do you have to have the reports of just their overall health ready, and don't let someone get injured when you're crossing the border or they're coming back.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And now you have to do the logistics of booking.
Yeah. And then it was,
What allowed you to not have entitlement and just
well, I think
go?
that was it was just what had to be done, right? Like, and then not being afraid to ask questions, right? I think that's the biggest mistake. I still see to this day is ask the questions, right? Like, ask the guys that have been there before. Hey, what do I do? Like, another thing was, hey, you got to order bats for all these guys. All right, we'll get a bunch of bats. No, it's multiple sizes, multiple weights.
Yeah.
Do they want a cupped end bat? Do they want a nozzle, a hosel on the end? What kind of? And then there's 100 different bat styles.
Right.
So, well, of course, all these guys are like, oh, I want this bat, 32 inches, 31 ounces. Okay, pick up the phone. Stan, I'm supposed to order bats. Like,
Yes.
how do I? He's like, okay, here's how you do it. All right, got it. Go around all the players. All right, here's your choices. And then depending on how high of a draft pick it was, you know, they knew that they were going to be a long time. You'd be like, order this guy 12 bats. This guy might not make it, so only get him 6 bats. So that was an interesting time but I think it was asking the questions like.
But where did that come from? I think that's because I've learned that not everybody knows how to ask a question. I have no fear. There's no shame in my game. I say when you use a reference, I'll say, I'll be honest with you, that went over my head.
Right.
Was that something that your father passed down to you, or your brother, you saw in school?
No, I think it was.
Because it takes a level of humility to ask a question.
Yeah, and I think it was that. I think it came from the house and from getting into athletic training and realizing, and then meeting new people and realizing, I don't know everything, right? So to go into something and be like, hey, look, I'm just going to be the sponge. And I think today, when you see new people coming out, whatever profession or whatever level, it's like you have a set amount of knowledge, right?
Right.
The sooner you come to grips with the fact that you don't know anything, right? Irregardless of what you think you know, the world knows, the universe knows a lot more than you know.
Right.
So be curious, and I developed that curiosity with my confidence, right? Like, you have to have the confidence, like you just said, right, to say, I don't know what you're talking about. Hey, could you explain that to me? Okay, how do you do this? And then, but one of my favorite quotes later, so then after that, I went to Indiana State to get my master's degree. And it was another eye-opening. I went into it with the same theory. Like, I'm already a professional athletic trainer, right? I'm going to go get my master's degree, blah, blah, blah. But they did everything totally different. So instead of bucking it like, no, that's not how you do it, I was like, all right, show me how you do it.
Right.
So I always equate it to my bag of tricks, right? So the more tricks I can have in my bag to pull out, the more flexible I can be. Instead of being like, no, I was taught this way, and that's the way you do it. If somebody else says it's not, then they're wrong, because you're right. But working with all those different cultures, working with different professionals, it was like, wow, I know very, very little about this whole field, and I'm a professional athletic trainer. And
no pun intended.
What are we doing? Okay. So, but you have to have that confidence in yourself, right? I think the people that don't ask questions are the people that aren't confident with themselves. So you don't want to show people what you don't know. And I think that's gotten exponentially worse in the world. Because it seems like, from my old eyes now, that people like to put on a front of who they think people want them to be. There's very few authentic people who are just like, hey, this is me, and I'm going to tell you. And that's one of the things that drew me to you, is like, I also figured out years ago that I don't care how things are done. I look for who can do them, right? So right. I'm a big believer in who. So when we're going to start talking about that,
we're going to talk about that in phase 2 when we get to the business.
So, but back then it was like, okay, learn as much as you can learn, because you're just breaking into this field.
Okay.
And I knew I didn't know anything about baseball, so I needed to absorb a lot about baseball. But even the field, and then all these logistics. So then that next year, I go back to school. I had 2 quarters left to finish my degree. Okay. So I go back, and I'm like, all right, what am I going to do? Well, I'm going to finish in March, and then baseball will start. I was supposed to go back to Great Falls in June for the short season for rookie ball. So I'm hanging out, talked to the head trainer. He goes, what are you going to do? And I said, I got like a 2-month gap where I got nothing. And he's like, well, why don't you stay and work spring football with us, because we could use you. I was like, awesome, at least I have something to do. Then one day I get a phone call from the Dodgers, and they're like, hey, what are you doing? I said, nothing, I'm planning on working spring football.
Yeah.
I said, well, we need you at extended spring training. We're having a problem with the athletic trainer down there. Is there any way you could fly to Florida? Because it was in Dodger Town, Vero Beach, Florida. I said, yeah, when? I said, as soon as possible.
Yep. I knew that was coming. I said,
like, next week? And they said, like, tomorrow. And I was like, okay. So packed up my stuff, took it back to my parents' house. They still lived in Helena. Said, here's all my stuff. Literally took that duffel bag with me, whatever I could fit in that little duffel bag that's up there. I still keep it up there as my reminder of how simple life can be.
Yeah.
Left the rest of my stuff with them and headed to Florida. And got down there, and that was what's called extended spring training. So spring training ends usually the end of March. And then the guys that aren't good enough to make a long season team, which starts in April, they put them in extended spring training until June. Well, it's usually all the foreign kids.
Right.
They recruit them younger. Mm-hmm. So I get down there to this hotel where they're all staying, and it's just a disaster. It's like, what is going on? Everybody's mad. I'm trying to figure out what's going on. So I was like, all right. And also, 90% of them speak Spanish.
Oh, Lord.
All I learned in baseball is all the swear words, so I knew if they were talking about me, right? I just learned enough Spanish to be like, hey. That was my only comeback. if I heard a Spanish swear word pointed at me, I'd be like, hey. And they thought I could speak Spanish, so then they didn't talk behind my back. I never spoke a word except all the cuss words.
Right. That's hilarious.
That's why I got to be careful with my Spanish, because I know a lot of bad words. I don't know very many good words.
That's so universal. Hey, that works everywhere. It works with people, anything.
Exactly. They think you know what they're talking about, and then it'll be like, does this guy know or not? So I was like, well, first thing I had to do is find an interpreter.
Oh, shit.
So I was like, is anybody here bilingual? So I found two guys that were really good bilinguals. So I was like, look, I need you to help me, because I don't have any idea what these people, what they're trying to tell me.
Yeah.
Says, what's the problem? Because they don't like, because we had food served for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Their food was covered. They'd go practice all day, play games, and come back to the hotel. So we're sitting there, and I said, okay, what's the matter with the food? Because I've gone down, and they had a buffet style thing.
Yeah.
So what do they want? What's the problem? They said, this isn't their food, right? The chef was cooking American food for all these kids from Dominican Republic, Puerto Rico, Venezuela, Mexico. They're like, this isn't what we eat.
Do we need the refried beans, my guy?
I said, yeah.
You
So
need
what do you
the
want?
refried beans, not the hash browns.
He said, that was his answer, rice and beans. I was like, you gotta be kidding me. He goes, no. I said, all right. So I go down and talk to the chef. I'm like, hey, instead of cooking all this crazy stuff you're doing, every day I need rice and beans and then some kind of protein. He's like, you're kidding me, right? Because those pennies on the dollar compared to what he's putting out.
Right.
Just do it. So going to dinner that night, and you'd have thought you walked into a Super Bowl party, man. Everybody's laughing, big plates of rice and beans, and they're all just smiling, and all of a sudden I became the man, right? Like in one day he solved half the problems.
Right.
So I was like, all right, cool. So I was like, all right, that problem's done. What's the next problem? So the next problem was the maids. Of course, all the maids there spoke Spanish too. Like the ladies cleaning the rooms. So I was like, what is the problem? And every day it would be like some maid yelling at me in Spanish, and I'd get my interpreter and be like, what is the problem? Well, third world countries don't flush their toilet paper. They throw it in the trash can. So the maids were mad that they had to deal with this. So I'm like, okay, let's have a meeting with everybody. Look, we have flushable toilets that can handle toilet paper. So I know it's a little cultural deal, like this is how we do things in America. So thought we solved that problem. And then one day, maids at my door screaming at me, and I was like, what? Like, oh man, here we go again. Get my interpreter. So we go to this room, and she's screaming, pointing at the bathroom. I'm like, all right, we talked to him. I don't know what you want from me. So we walk in the bathroom, and she's pointing. She doesn't point at the garbage can. She points at the bathtub. I'm like, what the hell's it? And it was the old style bathtub shower with the curtain.
Yeah.
Curtain's pulled, and I was like, what? And I pull the curtain back out, and there is a 3-foot alligator and a turtle in the bathtub. I'm like, I even jumped back on that one. Like, what the hell is going on? So I'm looking at my interpreter, and the two players are just going 100 miles an hour in Spanish. And I'm like, what is this? And the one guy looks up at me and goes, soup. Like there was a creek running through the hotel. They had gone and caught these things because at home, that's what you do. You go scourge for food. I'm like, no, we can't. Like, we have to get rid of these things.
Wait, so this was a living gator and a living turtle.
About 3 foot, 2.5, 3 foot long gator, and a big turtle in this bathtub with a little bit of water. And they had found dinner. They were proud of themselves that they had gone out and found food.
That has to be so. My first question: if the toilet paper one, I can understand. That's a fair one. I completely understand.
Still, if you go to other countries,
of course,
a common.
That's a common occurrence. The rice and beans, I don't know how the chef missed that one, but that's another. I'm like, yo, if you're a professional chef, you have to. I don't know how that happens.
Gauge the people.
You got to gauge the people. It's like being a DJ and you're like, I'm playing my music. You got to, if nobody's dancing, my guy.
Yeah, going to a country music party and playing rap and people be like, what is
going on? What is going on? So that one I didn't quite understand, but the gator and the turtle, I just want to know who was running this facility beforehand, because this seems like basic logistics that somebody.
Well, that was the problem, and it came down to, hey, we need you to. They told me they needed me to come fix because he wasn't doing the right athletic training either. Wasn't doing the right rehabs. Wasn't doing the right stuff.
So was that common for the trainers to have to do this because they see your logistics from? You, okay, then they were like,
it's that same thing that they don't tell you, right? That your job's also going to be to solve these problems.
Right.
But the weird part to me, and still to this day, and now I've gotten this reputation for solving problems, which started back then, right? Like,
yeah.
Because a lot of them are really easy to solve. You just need confidence and ask some questions and be like, hey, we got to fix this problem.
Right.
So you start fixing those problems, and people are like, oh my God, this guy is unbelievable. Not unbelievable, I just fix problems.
Right.
Mostly because it makes my job easier, right?
Listen, this is the story of my life.
Right. So that all happened. We go back, and so that's 88. So we go back we leave there.
This is still 10 years before you even started your business.
Right.
All right, now just because people need to understand that.
Right.
These levels, these stories, this is a decade before you decide I'm going to start my own, or to say practice, or what to make sure?
Practice.
I'm going to start my own practice. Okay, so now let's go back.
So 88.
You've fixed every problem in Florida.
Fixed problems. They're just like, oh my gosh. And then in the eyes of the organization, I was like, man, this guy's going to be something. Like, he can come in and get stuff under control. So we go back to Great Falls, start the season, and that's actually when I met a lot of the guys that ended up playing for LA. Eric Harris was there, Jose Offerman, a bunch of guys in the 90s, early 2000s were on that team. So I was like, wow, this is really cool. You know, like meeting a whole new group of people. And it's the other weird part of pro sports, especially in the minor leagues. In the lower minor leagues, it's a different team every year, right? Because guys are either moving up or moving out. So brand new team, 30 new guys to get to know. Still got the same manager, Tim, have a new pitching coach, have a new hitting coach. That year's going on. In the off season, I had applied for physical therapy school and to get my master's degree.
Okay.
So I get a call from Indiana State, and they said, hey, we'd like to offer you a full ride scholarship and a fellowship to come get your master's degree. So I was like, you're going to pay me? And I'd find out later that the reason was because the head of the program, Dr. Knight, was a huge Dodger fan. So once he saw I worked for the Dodgers, I was in. I don't even think, thank God he didn't look at my grades. Because in college it was the same. I was still rocking like the 2.9, right? Like,
but with 2.9 as a vice president, it's different. Yeah. You're swamped, you're busy, you got to keep the animal house together.
Yeah, got to keep us from getting kicked out.
Yeah.
So it's like, all right. So I get in there, but I had to leave in July, right, to go start my master's program. Terre Haute, Indiana. Never heard of it, except for Larry Bird, right?
Right, of course.
Played at
Come on
Indiana
now.
State.
Come on now.
And that's why he's still rocking up there.
For those who can see.
Yeah. So I was like, so I show up. I literally get in my car, drive to Terre Haute, Indiana, sight unseen, try to find a place to live.
No Google Maps.
No Google Maps.
Oh.
The school didn't help by telling us that, hey, the school's actually in the middle of the ghetto, so you might want to get out of the.
Yeah,
you might want to
yeah.
look a little further away. We just got an apartment by school,
Yeah.
and it was that. It was almost like poor white.
Dave Chappelle talks about that.
Yeah. So it's like, we'd walk this class, and you'd walk by these
Yep.
these dirty kids playing in the yard, and everybody's sitting on the porch. Then you'd walk through. It was like
You wonder what their responsibilities, what their agenda looks like.
poor white area, poor black area, and all of a sudden get on campus. For whatever reason, they had blacktop most of the campus. There was very few trees. I was just like, man, I just came from Montana. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
The heck is this? So start working there.
Where are the trees?
Yeah, what the hell? You guys can't grow grass out here? I think you get enough rain to grow grass.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
This is actually better, concrete and blacktop? I don't know about this. So learned a ton, though, from them. And still to this day, one of my favorite quotes from Dr. Knight, who ran the program, was a quote from Francis Bacon that read not to accept or to reject, but to weigh and consider. So he was a big research guy. So we called him Dr. Ice back then because he published several books on the effects of icing on the human body. So because of the Dodger thing, he made me his research assistant, which just means you're the first person in each study, right?
Right,
so
right,
I had
right.
so much ice on me for a year and a half. Like,
So you're published as well, I would assume.
yeah.
You're published in some academic journal
Yeah.
somewhere. Okay.
There's a couple articles out there that I co-authored because of all those studies. And then later I authored another one when I got here. But so just learning like the scientific method and research. And it was just like, wow. So this is where all these articles I've been reading for years come from.
Yeah.
So that was a cool learning experience. My team that year went on to win the championship for the Pioneer League. So then that year wraps up, hanging out in Indiana, poor
Yep.
as you can be, right? You know you're poor when you're jealous of people on food stamps.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, hell no. Why? I got to get macaroni and cheese. I can't even afford butter.
Yeah, right,
or milk
right,
for
right,
it.
right. You're right.
Or top ramen or cup of noodles. I'm standing in line like, no, this isn't right. Like, how come?
Yeah.
I'm trying to improve myself.
I'm doing everything I'm supposed to be doing.
Right.
How they get to get rich
And
quick?
I'm starving. I'm
You're
living on a couple
I'm
$100
just
a
as-
month.
Right. Oh my gosh.
But I
that's-
think that teaches you a lot too, right?
so far, like, understand, I'm keeping a chronological order of everything. Just like between the new job, learning the cultural differences, learning a new workplace, learning a new field. Like, you know it academically, knowing it in real world application are two totally different conversations. And then on top of that, learning logistics, and essentially you're there for athletic training.
Right.
But also, you've essentially become a manager of the team, a soft manager of the team.
Right.
Because those logistics, you remove that, as you very well know, in Florida, when somebody's not doing their job,
Right.
shit hits the fan.
Oh yeah, it goes bad quick.
Immediately, off
Right.
of things that could be solved in a matter of just minutes,
Oh, yeah.
seconds, you
Right.
know? So, this is all going on. Now you get to Indiana, and
Starving.
you're starving.
And then I get the phone call that they won the championship and they're all having a party and I'm
right.
eating boiled macaroni
Right.
or rice and beans. That was my other standard. So then I get a call, hey, we want you to come out to, what was first? Oh, first was I get a call from the Dodgers and they're like, hey, because that was 88's the year the Dodgers won the World Series. So I get a call and they said, hey, because we had won a bunch of the teams had won championships of the Dodger minor leagues.
Yeah.
So they said, Peter O'Malley owned the team back then, the O'Malleys. So he's so happy with how the year went, he wants to fly you to LA for the National Championship Series against the Mets. So you're going to come to the first 2 games. I'm like, okay.
You're in the box.
So I got to go talk to the head of the program, right? But I know he's a Dodger fan. So I'm like, hey, I got to go to the first. They invited me to go to the first 2 games of the Championship Series. But I need to take 4 or 5 days off to go there. And he's like, oh, no, absolutely go. But knowing he's a Dodger fan, I bring him back some autograph stuff, right? Just greasing the wheels.
Yeah, you're on fire.
Because I didn't know what else was going to happen.
You're right.
So I get back there, give him his stuff, get to go to the first 2 games at Dodger Stadium. And there was more people in that stadium than my hometown. So I'm just blown away. Like, there's 50,000 people. My hometown is like 20,000 people.
Oh, double your hometown.
So I'm just in this stadium looking around like the entire population times 2 of my hometown is in this stadium right now. The other weird
Where
part
were you
of that
sitting? Just so I kind of
we were on the Loge level up above right field line.
Okay.
But it was all like all the people that worked in the minor leagues.
Right.
The other weird part was I get picked up at the airport. They take me to the Biltmore Hotel, right? A nice hotel.
Okay,
It used to be one of the classics in LA.
Okay.
I got like $30 in my pocket. So I walk in and check in with my duffel bag. I'm like, do I have a reservation? They're like, oh yeah, here. And I go, okay. And they give me the key. I'm like, do I need to pay for any of this? They go, no, it's all covered. And I was like, okay, that's good.
Right. You got to confirm those things.
So they said, yeah, anything, your stay here is all paid for. Don't worry about it. I had never been in a hotel nicer than maybe like a Super 8 hotel my entire life. All of a sudden, I'm in the 5-star hotel. So I'm baffled. Go up to the room. They said, you can order whatever, room service. So I'm like, okay.
What does he
I got
do?
$30.
What does Tim order?
I ordered 2 beers.
Okay, good job.
Just in case.
America.
So yeah, it's like, can I get like 2 beers? And they're like, yeah, anything else? I'm like, no. So the guy comes up and signs it, and I go, so how's this work? I'm asking the guy that's delivering the food. He goes, what do you mean, how's this work? I go, well, I've never done this before. Like, I'm used to like eating at Denny's is a good night out.
Right. That's me today.
So, yeah, like,
I feel you.
He's like, no, you're with the Dodger party. Anything you order is covered. Pick up the phone. Okay, I'll have a steak sandwich and 6 more beers. I mean, I went from starving to the top of the line. They're like, oh my gosh, this is going to be a great trip. Go to the games, have a great time, fly back. About a couple weeks later, I get a call. Dodgers win the World Series. Unbelievable. Get a call, and they said, hey, they want you to come to organizational meetings in Arizona. I was like, oh man, okay. How long is it? So it's another like fly to Arizona, stay at this nice resort, golf resort.
You're leaving Florida, LA.
Yeah.
Now
Indiana. Now I leave Indiana and go to LA, back to Indiana, down to Phoenix for organizational meetings. I have no idea why I'm there or what's going on. My roommate was Charlie Strasser, who was at that time the head trainer of the LA Dodgers.
Okay.
So somehow that's my roommate. So I'm like, okay. Still, I think I scraped up $40 for that trip.
Right,
so I'm still like nervous. Everywhere I go is nervous. Like, man, if I have to pay for anything,
this is going to be bad.
It's gonna be bad. I'm gonna have to ask for an advance on next year's salary. So, hanging out with him, and we go to the organizational meeting, and I was like asking Tim Johnson, the manager. I'm like, I don't even know why I'm here or what I'm supposed to do. He goes, the meetings will start with rookie ball, and the manager gets up on the stage, and he goes through the entire roster. And this is when I saw the bad part, or the weird part of professional sports. Goes through the entire roster with definite prospect. You know, we're looking at this guy to move up. No chance. He's one of the guys we're going to cut. Has some skills, has a chance. Or organizational guy. And I came to find out that the worst thing you get dubbed is organizational guy. Because that means they like you, but they're never going to advance you. You're gonna plug a hole in the roster somewhere in the minor leagues, but they're not looking at you going up to ever make it to major league.
Right.
So I was just dumbfounded, like, wow, all this happens. So I sat there through the couple days of meetings, listening to each one, and then afterwards I was like, Tim, I thought you liked these guys. And he goes, oh, I love them, but this is the business side of sports, right?
Right.
My job is to find the diamonds in the rough and move them up the ladder, and then find the guys that are good guys to have around that probably will eventually become coaches or managers because they understand the game, but they don't have that skill set.
Right, and that's your organ.
It's the organizational meetings. So then the funniest thing that happened was one of my favorite stories is Charlie and I are walking across the compound, and I'm still just, I'd never seen a golf course like that, or a compound like that, and we're walking across, and so I'm walking with Charlie, and here comes Tommy Lasorda with his entourage. Tommy always travels in an entourage.
Right.
So there were probably 6 or 7 guys around Tommy, so he stops, and he's talking to Charlie, he's talking to him, because Charlie's his trainer. He's like, Tommy, this is Tim Terrio. He's one of our minor league athletic trainers.
Right.
And Tommy goes, finally, a good Italian boy coming up through the ranks. I'd love to see it. And I said, I'm not Italian, Tommy. I'm French. And he goes, that's too fucking bad. He turns around and starts walking away. I was just like,
grand opening, grand closing.
Charlie's like, dude, what's the matter with you? Why didn't you tell him you're Italian? And I was like, because I'm not. Like, I'm not going to.
Interviews with you has just never been your thing. Because you remember.
Yeah, I screw it up. Yeah.
Every 10 times out of 10.
But it was like, I'm not going to lie to the guy.
Yeah.
And have him find out later that I'm not.
Yeah, you're right. You did the right thing.
So, yeah.
You did the right thing.
So, finish those meetings, and then we get called to a meeting during that, and they're like, hey, Mr. O'Malley's so happy with everybody that he's buying you all World Series rings. So I actually have a 1988 World Series ring. So, still in my safe.
Yeah.
Probably shouldn't say that, but
yeah.
So then
edits.
I was just like, so we set this meeting and get like a ring fitting kit.
Yeah.
And I was like, wait, this is going to happen. Then we get called, the last day we get called to another meeting, goes, Mr. O'Malley's so excited about what happened that he's going to send you all on a week-long vacation in Rome, Italy. I'm like, what in the world?
But you've used your passport because you've gone to Canada.
Right.
But Italy is a completely different conversation.
Yeah, I'd never been on that long of a ride, so sure enough, we end up in Italy with all the Dodger management,
crazy
doctors, all the trainers, and just like, that's when my brain was just exploding. Like, oh my God, like that's world.
And how old are you at this time?
I was 22, 23 at the time.
It's legendary. That's like 22, 23.
Starving 90% of the time, but then popping out to these trips where they're like, oh, here's check in here, here's an envelope full of money to help with your expenses while you're here. Because it was the same thing. I had like $40 in my pocket. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know what I'm going to eat. And then these elaborate meals that they had for us with chefs. And it was just such an amazing tours of everything. Just get on the bus, go tour the Coliseum, go tour all this stuff I had only heard about.
In your 20s?
In my early 20s, I'm seeing it all. So go back to Indiana, like, okay, this is crazy.
That transition is wild. Going from Rome to,
going from
to blacktops. Ain't nothing smooth
I hope
about
you don't
that
need
transition.
a suit, because I don't have any. I got like my track suit for the Dodgers is the only suit I own.
Right.
I don't even know how many button-up shirts I had at that time. Like, that's not what I wear. So go back, finish up that semester, and then they called me and said, hey, we want to elevate you up to long season, A-ball, and you're either going to be in Vero Beach, Florida, or in California. And I was like, awesome.
Yeah.
Both sound cool. I'm living in Indiana, so I have to go again, and this is when I figured out that I was pretty good at negotiating. So I go back to the head of the program. I'm like, hey, look, I got to be at spring training like February 15th. Is there something we can do?
Yeah.
And he's like, he's excited, right? Because I brought him back stuff from Rome too. Like I was greasing it.
Yeah.
So he's like, well, I guess if you I had 2 or 3 classes. He goes, if you could get all the work done before you leave in February, because I had to be down there February 15th
Yeah.
for spring training. He said, if you can get everything done, I'll just credit you those classes. So I was like, okay, so work my butt off.
Yeah, you went crazy.
For a year.
Headphones on, locked in. You locked in.
Oh, and that time too, like I slept on an airbed that whole time, right? Like I didn't have money for a bed.
So you waking up in the middle of the night doing the...
Yeah, exactly. It was old school. It wasn't an automatic refill.
Oh, no.
All of a sudden, be like, man, this is getting uncomfortable. It's because the bed went flat and I'm laying on the hard ground.
Yeah.
Fill it back up and try to get some more sleep. So, but that was another great time because the other people getting their master's degree were from New York and all around the nation had come here to get their masters. So we became really good friends, had a lot of fun. But even though we didn't have money,
right?
You're buying the cheapest beer possible.
But that's what your early 20s is supposed to be.
Yeah.
You know, I look back at mine, like me, I'm 29, right? I'm 30. I'll be 30 in a month or two, something like that. And I look back at my early 20s and I'm like, now's broke is a little bit different than then's broke.
Yeah.
Because now's broke, it's like, it's a little bit more pressure, family, kid,
Right.
whoop-de-whoop. But then being broke, it was just normal.
Yeah.
Like,
And somehow you always found something to eat. And
I don't know how I paid my rent. To this day,
Oh, yeah.
I don't know how the rent got paid. If somebody told me, how did I pay my rent at my Edgewater apartment with like the 4 people I shared with, I don't know how I did it. Applebee's margaritas $1, going crazy.
Oh, yeah, you got to find the happy hours.
The happy
And
hours.
especially the ones with food.
Oh,
Where
what?
you buy,
What?
you figure out, okay, how much do I have to buy to be able to eat?
Yeah.
Okay, you got to buy at least 2 drinks. Okay, there. Oh, but there's on happy hour, so they're $1 or 2. Okay.
Perfect.
I got
Perfect.
$5.
Yeah.
$5, I got a couple drinks and ate.
That's what, and that's what, and that's why I think that early 20s broke is not real broke. It's not, and I think that a lot of kids today, they're coming out of school under the impression that they're walking straight into their $100,000 a year job.
Right. Doesn't happen.
Yeah.
Very rarely, it happens a little bit, but
But
I think there's something about going through that, though.
The
It
realization.
teaches you about yourself. Yeah, that. So I don't live in fear of like losing stuff. 'Cause
Yeah.
It's like I've done it.
Right,
Do I
right.
want to do it again? No.
Right,
But
right.
I mean, I prefer my house now. And
Yeah.
Having fun, but you know you can. You don't live in fear of it,
Right.
right?
Yeah,
Do
yeah,
I want to
yeah.
do it again? Absolutely not. But I'm not afraid of it,
Right, right.
which is a very freeing thing. So then '89, I get to go to full spring training, meet all of the, everybody's on a high because the Dodgers won in '88.
Yeah.
Got all the new players going in. Helped do physicals with the major league team. Got to meet them all, and then hang out in the bar. The Dodger Town had a bar in the middle. It was kind of like Cheers, and only staff could go in there. So that was where we'd hang out.
Oh, wow.
Staff drank for free.
Oh,
Worked
wow.
out really well. Well, some nights it didn't work out really well. Some nights, a little bit of a too long of a day, a little too long of a night too, which made the next day even longer.
Right, right.
But it was just such a weird world, and just meeting like nonstop, like sitting in that bar, and like every other person who walks in is a Hall of Famer or used to play for the Dodgers or.
And everybody knew that. It was
Yeah.
just, it was so normal.
And you're inside, right? Because you're introduced as a minor league trainer. You're
Right.
in the organization, so they're comfortable to sit around
You.
and tell you stories because you're in.
Yeah.
So just at 20, I was 23 that year, just sitting there like, this can't be real.
Right.
There's no way this is real.
Yeah.
That I went from living in Montana thinking I was going to be there the rest of my life. Now I'm in Vero Beach, Dodger spring training, hanging out with Don Drysdale, Sandy Koufax, Johnny Padres, Johnny Roseboro, all the
Just legends. Legends.
And they're telling stories, and I'm just like, I got nothing.
Right, right.
I got nothing.
I bought a beer this morning,
None of my stories aren't that interesting.
So my question for you now is I want you use the reference a book I read, Time In and Time Out, Rich Dad, Poor Dad.
Mm-hmm.
At this point, if you subscribe to the I guess we'll say the poor dad in that theory, if you subscribe to that, it looks as if your life should essentially begin and end right here because you have the perfect situation.
Yeah, and that's what would have happened was I would have, and this came afterwards, but I found out that if I'd have stayed, I'd have been the LA Dodgers trainer at some point.
Right.
In the next few years. 89, so they didn't send me to Florida. They sent me to Bakersfield, California, which was a bit of a stretch when they told me I was going to California.
Right. Right.
People from the rest of the nation think California is just one big beach. They don't know that there's another part.
Right.
I didn't know there was another part. So we get here in 89 with the team, and the only guy who had been here was the manager. Tim had been here for like a week or two during a training thing. So they take us immediately from the airport to Sam Lynn Ballpark and drop us off. And then we had buses that would take us to this hotel where we were staying, and then we'd go back. We had like a month of that just to try to get everybody to find housing.
Yeah.
So I was like, all right. So in that time, I was like, all right. So, but you're traveling. So that year, I think I had from February 15th until the season ended, I had maybe 10 days off. So from February to November, I had maybe 10 days off.
February to November.
Because it's every day, right?
Yeah, I know you saw my brain kind of click out because my brain is trying. I'm thinking November to February.
No. So February to November, 9 months.
That's the whole year
of 10, maybe 10 days off. The other thing that's weird is
it's even a day off a month.
Yeah, if that.
If that.
And even then, that's contingent on if they want to have practice.
Right.
And every day, the trainer has to be the first one in, right? So
yeah.
You're the first one in so that people can come in and do their treatments before practice, and then go out and cover practice, then treatments after practice, and then laundry and restocking, and it was just a nonstop job. So my first home, well, after the hotel, I lived at Sam Lynn Ballpark. That was my house because there was no reason to leave. I was working 16, 18 hours a day.
Right.
So why go pay money on a rent? And I was making a whopping, I think my first job was like 18 grand for that year. So I'm making $18,000. I don't have a lot of money for rent. So I was like, all right, figure this out. But it didn't make any sense to me. So I just lived at the ballpark. So met my now ex-wife and was like, this isn't the life that I want, right?
Right.
I mean, it's cool. You're meeting a lot of cool people, but what's the life I actually want?
Right.
Is it really being at the ballpark every day for 16 hours? So at that time, I was like, well, so I quit the Dodgers that year. We won the championship in Bakersfield last time they won it, 1989. They're not even here anymore. Finished out that season, went to instructional league in Arizona until pretty much right before Thanksgiving.
Right.
Came back here, went back to Indiana to finish my master's degree. So I was back there for 5 or 6 months. And then I was like, all right, finished up, came back here. There was no real athletic training jobs in Bakersfield, so I moved down to LA, lived down there, got a couple jobs.
So you're just bouncing around with jobs.
Yeah. I lived out of a duffel bag.
Right, that's the way it sounds. Like you said 5, 6 months, 5, 6 months here, 5, 6 months, 5, 6 months.
Probably for about 4 years for sure, I lived out of a duffel bag.
Wow.
Everything I owned was like, when I came, that was it. Then found out later, all the stuff I had left at my parents' house.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that. Okay,
so
yeah.
I left all my stuff with them. Their house flooded. They threw away everything. So literally everything I owned was in that goofy bag. Because they were like, oh, well, I mean, my Letterman jackets from high school, my yearbooks, all of that was in the basement when it flooded. It all got thrown away. So it was like, which I thought was kind of metaphorical of my new life, right?
Yeah.
So I just took it as, that's okay. I don't really care.
Yeah.
I don't want any of that stuff because this is my new life. So then my new life evolved into the Dodgers. So then it was time for that next chapter. And that's when I decided I'm going to try to make another run at physical therapy. So got into physical therapy school in Long Beach, because by then you had to keep above a 3.0 to stay in the master's program. So I had like a 3.5 in my master's program only because I had to, just to stay in it and keep getting paid. So we got that done, got through PT school, but we graduated in December. So one of my realizations later is I graduated 3 times from college after being told you're not college material.
Right, that counselor who told you that.
Yeah. Part of me wants to go look it up and be like, don't tell people that. Like, you don't know. Like, Exhibit A, okay? Yeah, so the next chapter was got through PT school, started working, but still to the rich dad, poor dad thing. My brain was still on, it's a job.
Right.
I got a job. I had a job with the Dodgers. I have a job doing PT. My oldest son was born in 1993, and we decided we'd move out of LA. We didn't want to raise our kids in LA.
Okay.
My ex's family was all up here, so I put my resume out, got a job up here. The big company, so I got a taste of the corporate world. Realized I'm not good in the big corporate world. Like, I don't like
you and I both.
Corporate world.
Yeah.
Went to work for a local firm because I was like, this isn't working, I'll try that.
Yeah.
They allowed me to open up my own clinic for this other company that's still around. And so I was like, so now I know I've got a sports medicine background. I've got creds that nobody else has, right? I've worked with the Dodgers. I've worked college football.
All the cards are lining up.
Yeah, now and I worked for, my first job out of school was with Colonel Job in LA because Dr. Job was the team doctor for the Dodgers.
Okay.
So I got hired to work for him until we decided to move. But I came up here like, who's got the credentials I've got, right? Like
nobody.
So, but still was like, you're an employee. So working for this company, I got to set up my own clinic. And then it was just a different kind of roadblocks, right? I went from big corporation roadblocks of you got to run it up the corporate chain and see if it comes back down.
Yeah.
The smaller one was like people that had run their clinic for a long time that had their blinders on of this is how we do things, right? Because this is how we've been successful through these years. So finally, just get the awareness of, hey, I can't do this. I got to give it a shot to run my own.
Yeah, but because it's so funny how you had that epiphany, because I'm looking at this as any other time you've been told this is the way we do things, you're okay with it.
Right.
You're okay with it and you adapt. And that's why we had a conversation about that, right?
Right.
But this was the first time where you said, I'm not going to tell you you're wrong, but I know that my way has some rights in it.
Right. Yeah, and that's but I think it was a culmination of all that, of so many different experiences. And when I saw that short-sightedness, that's what the epiphany was. You guys don't even know what you're talking about, right?
Right.
You haven't been around the nation and met the people I've met and learned what I've learned.
Right.
And you don't want to listen to me. So if you're my competition,
this should be.
Let's do it.
Yeah, let's.
So, and in all honesty, my other thought was, I was 31 at the time. And I thought, well, worst case scenario, if this all goes bad, I have time to recover.
Right.
Like, I can recover from this. My ex-wife was an RN, I was a PT. We were pulling down more money than I'd ever made in my life, right? Like, so it was some conversations about, are you really sure? Because we're kind of comfortable in this lifestyle. Then 1997 rolled around. I was like, look, I'm done. Told them I'm quitting. They offered me to buy in on the company, and I was like, no, I got to go do my own thing.
Yeah. I
got to try this. So end of 97, turned in my notice, finished out my contract, and then said, okay, in 98, we're launching. It's time to go. But I had already I couldn't officially do anything because I was under contract.
Right.
But behind the scenes, I had already set up
Yeah.
my plan, my equipment. I knew it's just how life works, and I didn't understand this until recently, but it's manifesting, right?
Yeah.
You manifest what you want to have happen,
Yeah.
and then weird stuff happens, right? So I'm like, okay, I only have, when we started Terrio Therapy, I only had like maxing out credit cards and taking out home equity. I had maybe $30,000 to start Terrio Therapy. Cutting our income in half.
Right.
So it was like edgy, but I was like, okay, how in the world am I going to do this? So I was looking for locations, and I happened to go down to, I used to work out at, this is years ago, it was, some of the gardeners are here.
Yeah. I was checking to see if our audience, you're good.
So I used to work out at, it was a Bakersfield Athletic Club on Ming Avenue.
Okay.
So right at the end, somewhere in 97, they closed. So I went to look at it as a possible location.
Right.
So I pull up, and they're hauling the equipment out, and they're putting in these trucks, all this weightlifting equipment. I was like, hey, what are you guys doing with that? They're like, oh, we're from this company in LA. We buy gym equipment, we refurbish it, and then we sell it. I was like, okay. They gave me a card, so I called the guy in LA. He said, yeah, come down. So I went down to a huge warehouse in LA, and they had all this used exercise equipment there we're refurbishing. But it was pennies on the dollar.
Right.
Right? A new treadmill now is about $8,000. Back then it was $5,000 or $6,000. I was like, well, how much does this stuff sell for? And it was like, well, the treadmills are like $1,500. And I go, oh, awesome. So I called the guy back. I said, hey, I want this stuff. And he goes, well, we didn't move the stuff from Bakersfield. It's in a warehouse in Bakersfield. We haven't brought it down here yet. So why don't you go look through that? He goes, if you buy it as is, we'll make it even cheaper.
Oh.
I was like,
Deals on deals.
done.
Yeah.
So found a location, argued with the landlord. He's like, wanted a 3-year deal. I was like, dude, the most I can give you is a year, because if this thing flops, I'm not going to be on the hook for 3 years.
Yeah.
Had the equipment, bootstrapped it. I mean, we literally, friends of mine and I were in there tearing up carpet, painting walls. I was pulling on anybody I knew, electrician friends, and anybody to come help me get it up and running. We actually opened 19 days after, in January. It took me 19 days to put a clinic together. Opened up, I was the only employee. I had a volunteer receptionist.
Yeah.
It was an old patient of mine.
Yeah.
Still living in fear that my old boss was going to come after us
Yeah.
and say, hey, you guys are starting to make too much noise.
Yeah.
You know, like, so developing it all. That.
Yeah. I was just checking to make sure.
Yeah, loud. So got it going. I had already worked in town for about 4 years, so I knew a bunch of the docs, and I had a following of patients.
Yeah.
And it just started growing. And I mean, even then, my thought was, because at that time, well, and still today, when you listen to the physical therapy world, they tell you, here's how you do it, right? So I was watching going to their seminars.
Yeah.
Here's how you do it. You set one up. You do these things. Eventually, you open a second one. But very few of them ever got above 3 clinics. And that's just what they taught.
Yeah.
So we did the same thing. I opened one. In 2000, we were maxed out in space.
Yeah.
The clinic was full. I talked to all my advisors, my accountant, my attorney, my ex, my friends, and they all said, yeah, so, because I was like, do I open a second one, or do I keep this one and make it bigger?
Right.
100% agreement, you keep one and make it bigger.
Okay.
So I opened a second one. So Remember, you listen to weigh and consider. You don't listen to review.
My brain went completely in the other direction. I was like, oh, okay. Make it big.
No, and my only thought at that time was, we're starting to make noise
Right.
in the therapy world.
Yeah.
If I have 2 locations, I'm harder to box in, right? If I keep one, and they were smart, had they been smart at the time, they'd have popped up a clinic right next to me, right? Like that's what I would have done.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
Hey, this kid's making too much noise. Let's steal some of his thunder.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I was like, no, I gotta have 2. So I do 2. So that's like in March of 2000. I opened my second clinic, and it was in the marketplace, and it was another big, like,
Yeah.
questionable move, especially since everybody told me I was doing the wrong thing.
Right.
Get that going, and maybe 2 months after that, I get a call from the guy that ran Gym Care at the time,
Okay.
and he said, hey, I need to meet with you. And I was like, about what? Like, we hardly did any of their work.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So I said, so we go talk, and he's like, so what we're trying to do, so this is my first foreshadowing of the future, was he said, what we're trying to do as an insurance company, they're a third-party administrator, TPA, right? So the big insurance companies hire the TPAs to manage contracts.
Okay.
He said, our contracts are getting out of control. We got too many contracts for doctors, too many contracts for therapists, too many contracts for orthopedic surgeons.
Uh-oh, Logistics is coming in.
Yeah.
Everything you learned in the doc.
Right.
Okay.
It's all training.
It's
And I
all
was
coming
like,
together. Okay.
I was like, okay. And he goes, the weird part is, the 2 orthopedic surgeons we picked, we asked them, who do you want to use for physical therapy? And back then it was, the 2 big guys in town back then. He said, we thought for sure it was going to be them. And all of a sudden they say Terrio.
Yeah,
and we're like, who the hell is Terrio? Like, I said, okay. So he's like, first of all, I need to know who you are and how did you get these guys' attention? Because these are 2. Luckily, they were 2 of the louder orthopedic surgeons.
Right.
They're the
So
ones
their
like-
brand had to have some equity in order
Right.
for your
So,
brand
right.
to now.
To carry weight, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So if the world had been different and they'd picked different doctors, who knows what would happen?
Right.
It didn't happen that way. So I start talking to him about it all, and he's just like, all right. He goes, yeah, it's unfortunate, though, because I don't think unfortunately, I only have 1 location, because if you're going to need at least 2. You go, I just opened one. And he's like, oh, man. So at that time, he said, we're going to cut down to 2 therapy providers, right? So you'll be one, and we're going to pick another one, and the 2 of you. So we only have to manage 2 contracts.
Right.
I said, okay. So we start negotiating it all, and I'm talking about treatment philosophy and how we're going to do it.
Yeah. It sounds more on the artistic side.
Yeah.
Like more.
Yeah, this is my philosophy,
Yeah,
right? This
yeah,
is my
yeah,
philosophy of treatment. This is my philosophy of how we're going to do this. And the guy calls me back, it was like maybe in June, and says, hey, what if you just do all of our work? What if we give you an exclusive contract to be the only therapy provider?
I mean.
I was like, okay, well, I need to see the numbers. Like, what
Right.
does that mean?
Oh, okay. Okay.
Like,
Thank you.
Like, back to logistics, like, okay, because I got 2 small clinics, right? Mm-hmm. What exactly are we talking about? So he sends it over, and it's like, we can't do this. I can't do it with 2. So he's like, well, I said, look, if you give me a 3-year contract, exclusive contract, I'll open a 3rd location, because then I can handle the volume.
Right.
And he said, well, if you're willing to do that. I said, if you're willing to do that. So we're all the way to the 11th hour of this thing. He goes, hey, by the way, you've never asked me about what we're going to pay. I said, yeah, well, I know what you pay now, and I'm guessing it's going to be in that ballpark.
Right.
And he starts laughing. He's like, that's a good guess. And he goes, well, why didn't you bring it up the whole time? I said, because I just assumed you were going to pay the same amount.
Yeah, yeah.
And he said, and then that was when he first gave me the light that, he goes, you know, one of the main reasons I picked you, you're the only one. Every other provider that came in to talk to us, that was their first question. How much are we going to get paid?
Right.
They didn't take time to tell us how they're going to care for our patients. They
Right.
didn't take time to to think through how it's going to work, where the clinics are. So when I opened Terrio Therapy in '98, you could take a map of Bakersfield. That was back when we had paper maps, by the way.
Yeah.
It was like,
Yeah.
it never was on your phone.
Right.
So we didn't even have phones. You could take a map of Bakersfield and draw a 1 mile circle around downtown Bakersfield. 85% of the physical therapy clinics were in that 1 mile circle. Everybody went to the center of town. I lived out in the Northwest, and I was like, well, wait a minute. Makes more sense to, if you got to come, that's cool if it's a doctor's office that you go to once every few months. But if you got to come see us 2 or 3 times a week, you're going to want something more convenient.
Right.
So I started opening my clinics in the surrounding areas. So Northwest, Southwest, Northeast. Because then they said, oh man, this is going to be so much easier for our patients, our clients to go. So it just, let's go. And then I figured out why people stop at 3. Because your span of control is crazy. Like, I don't know what's going on.
Yeah.
I'm still the top producing therapist of the company, running this company with multiple therapists, but I'm still seeing a full patient load, trying to actually run a company too. So I was like, man, there's got to be a way, because back then it was all paper charts, right? So it was like, you're supposed to do chart reviews to go check on your therapist. And I was like, there's got to be a way that I can do this where I can see it without physically going to these locations.
I just want to come back a little bit. You said something that I think would be critical for those who are watching. As you talk about your story, first of all, I want to firstly say, I see a lot at the timing of everything. It reminds me a lot of myself.
Right.
You know, the 23, literally same job. You already know all the detail. I was like, I got to jump on my own. I got to try my own new things. Yada yada yada.
Branch
like
out.
it's so. When I'm watching, I'm like, I for a quick second, I was like, my living room is pretty cool. Like it's like that. Like I really for a cool second, I was like, this is pretty cool. But you said something about the provider coming to you saying that you pitched philosophy. You pitch philosophy, and that is something that I recently started doing when trying to acquire new leads, or not even leads, but when leads come to me.
Right.
Is like, it's not a question on if it could be done, but let me just tell you, before we start going to cost, let me tell you logistically how it will work. Right. And then we can have that conversation. I think a lot of people sometimes put the cart before the horse, and they'd be like, well, how much money you got? And then we can organize according to that.
Yeah. Exactly.
You're right. And I see that, but I also remember earlier in my career, I think the only thing, or earlier in my video career, was that I stopped everything to do video. So I had to lean into, how much is it?
Right.
But then what happened was, after I became a nurse, and now that I know my nursing covers my living, I can come in with my Mohammed philosophy.
Right.
When I
do it on site. And that's a key point of anything when I'm talking to people with their ideas.
Yeah.
I get approached a lot is, and you'll read it from a lot of the big guys, but don't give up. Don't do what I did where you cut off, right?
Right.
Start your side hustle.
Right.
In your spare time. Only when it can replace your revenue do you fully jump.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly.
So it's been out there, but that's the kind of stuff that you learn about, again, when you open your circle, right? So I was listening to physical therapy and what they were teaching. In 2004, I'd gotten up to 4 clinics by then. And it was just like, because I created my own documentation system. Old school, using Excel. But what it allowed me to do was I could go online and see what my other therapists were doing. So they didn't know how much I was paying attention, but I would make little comments to them, just like my Hispanic, swear words, right?
Yeah.
Like, hey, what's going on with this patient? They'd be like, oh yeah, hey, I was looking at this and this doesn't make sense. So all of a sudden, I didn't have to travel around to do chart reviews, and they didn't know how much I was looking at it. So that allowed us to get to 4, and then we were looking at opening our 5th location because I finally had some controls in place. Then it was the next big shift in my life was I was invited to join this group called YPO, Young Presidents Organization. They were starting, it's an international organization, but they were starting a chapter for San Joaquin Valley. A lot of the big players locally.
Yeah.
So by virtue of being connected in the community, I was part of Rotary and doing all the community things.
Yeah.
They invited me to join this club. And it was the next big sponge moment of all of a sudden I'm hanging out with uber successful business people. And after learning from them for a while, but I went in with the open mind, tell me how you do things.
Right.
How is it possible you run a $50 million company or
right.
$30 million company or $100 million company? And I started learning how the systems they had in place. And then I remember I walked into then I had a small leadership team. I said, hey, I don't want to do this anymore. And they're like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
I'm no longer interested in running a physical therapy business. And they were all like, what? I go, no, I want to run a great business that does physical therapy. So we're going to flip this thing upside down. We're going to start looking at it as a business that does physical therapy, not a physical therapy business. So I stopped paying attention to physical therapy world, what they were talking about teaching, because they were still teaching to have two clinics.
Right.
So once I started doing that, it was like, oh, this is going to grow.
But I also wonder, because me just being in marketing, you understood there's two things that I've found to be quite amazing. Your scalability, which is sometimes from all the podcasts I listen to with CEOs, two of the hardest things they have issues with: hiring and scalability.
Right.
That's the death of every business.
Right.
And then I noticed that you learned scalability relatively early in your career.
Right.
But not for the sake of not only having more patients, but because of branding. You knew what it looked like to be in a specific area. What were you just looking at all the Dodgers branding early in your career? And you're like, look, if they know that blue anywhere.
The other thing that happened when I opened my company, when I opened Terrio Therapy, was just like back in the day where I knew I didn't know anything. I knew I didn't know anything about business. So I started voraciously reading business books, self-improvement books, thought leaders, talking to my buddies in YPO, I got to understand it so I can actually ask intelligent. That's the other part of questions, right?
Yeah.
To be able to ask an intelligent question, especially when you're in those circles, right?
Right.
So I could have just gone into it and been like, hey, I'm just coming into this to leech off you guys. But ask them, hey, what are you reading? What's the most influential books you've read?
Can you answer that for me?
Oh, me?
Yeah, that was one of my questions.
There's a bunch of them. Early on, it was all the classics like How to Win Friends and Influence People, A Simple One as a Man Thinketh, right? It's a really small book. And then just different sales book. But I think the one that had the most impact on me was The Pirate Inside, which is my pirate themes. Yeah, it still carries through. I kind of like pirates anyhow, but when I read that book, it was about how pirate ships functioned, right? We have our movie view of it, but they actually had a list of rules, right? That was the charter or the code. Pirate's code was, this is the list. This is what's going to happen to you if you break the rules, right? If you do something little, you might get lashings. The next up, you might get keelhauled where they would drag you onto the ship because it was like that was offensive enough. And the final one was if you stole or didn't do anything, you get marooned or walk the plank. Yeah. You're off the ship. You broke the rules, you're off the ship. But the other part of it was, here's what you're going to get, right? Any of the bounty or the booty we get, they had strict rules of the captain gets this much, the leaders get this much, the workers get this much. So they knew as they were going out plundering, and they were also mostly hired by governments to raid other governments' ships.
I did not know that.
Yeah, so that's the real background of piracy was government. Imagine that. Got involved in, I think that still happens. They call it something different. They don't call it piracy anymore, but they call it something similar. So I thought, what a cool way to look at it, right? Like, imagine, as I read it, I was like, what would happen if I made each of my centers like their own pirate ship? The captain's in charge is the clinical manager. Here's the basic rules that I want, right? So the rules in the pirate days were if the King of England hired you, you couldn't raid any English ships, but you have fun with the French, the Spanish, the Portuguese, whoever else you could steal from, that's all you're free.
Go crazy.
A percentage of that would go back to the government to provide protection, and that was the government's piece of the pie. And then they would split up what was left. So,
And this book is called, one more time,
The Pirate Inside.
The Pirate Inside. Okay.
Phenomenal book. Read through it. But I thought, maybe that's the way to go, right? Like, maybe it isn't just, here's how you're going to treat an ACL patient.
Right.
It's not cookbook. I'm going to let each manager's personality kind of come out in their center with the basic tenets of patient first, right?
Right.
It always has to be, we do have uniform colors, inspector branding. We went with the uniform color scheme just so people could see it, uniform logo. But let's let them be themselves.
Right.
Within a certain framework, right?
I would assume that even the culture in different regions of Bakersfield probably
it's totally different.
Completely different. You can't you can have universal policies,
right?
But the culture within the actual
you have the guidelines. You have your back to brand, right? If you read all the branding stuff, you have your brand, but then you have your brand promise,
right?
And your brand rules, right? Like this is what fits in our brand,
right?
And one of them early, back to when I had the gym care discussion, the place that I was working at before had color-coded charts based on your type of insurance. So if you were a low-paying insurance, you got low care, right? You got the bare minimums. And they justified it by saying, well, you get what you pay for.
Right.
But I found that offensive in the fact that the employee's not doing it. It's not the employee that went out and bought the insurance company. It's whoever their boss is,
right, signed
up the insurance. So why are we punishing the person because of their type of insurance instead of treating everybody the same?
Right.
So we have different color charts, but our charts are based on the insurance so that because there's different billing rules for each insurance company. So it's just the earmark to know that, hey, this is on this type of insurance, you build these units. On this, you build these.
But I'm pretty sure if you pitch that conversation or even pitch that observation to your peers in the industry at the time, they'll probably look at you like you were crazy.
Oh yeah, because it was what they're teaching.
It was you don't open no more than 3 clinics theory.
Right.
Yeah.
And you treat, if you've got a low-paying HMO client, you see them the minimum amount of times. You see them literally handing people sheets of exercise. Oh, you have a crappy insurance? Here's your sheet of exercise. We'll see you in a couple weeks. I was like, wait a minute. I didn't get into this job to hand out paper.
Yeah.
I need to get my hands on it. And I was reprimanded several times at that job for putting my hands on people. That's what I learned. And full circle, when I got my doctorate 10 years ago, I'm reading all this, going through this program and reading all these research papers. And they're like, oh, so you read this article about this technique coupled with exercise is the best way to go. I was like, no. I just know through experience that that's the best way to treat. That's the fastest way to get them better. Like, oh, yeah, so you read this article. No, I just know that when you do this and this, they get better faster. So I think it's in any business. One of the things I'm talking to my friends who are in business is like, you have to understand that through experience, if you're smart, if you're wise, you start building algorithms in your head, right?
Yeah.
If you're paying attention,
you can notice the pattern.
Yeah,
quickly.
There's always a pattern. So now when I see a new patient, it's like probably within 5 minutes, I'm like, okay, I know how to get you better.
Yeah.
Because I've run it through my head, right? Like, okay, you have this, and this. Okay, here's the treatment plan for that.
I have to give you your credit. I'm not sure if you even remember. I'm going to go back. Do you remember our first interaction?
I
don't remember which. I don't remember.
Yeah.
It was at one. It was at one of the. It was one by the pizza spot or the gas station.
Yeah.
It's one by the gas station.
Yeah, one by the gas station.
And when we first met, I was like, hey, I want to pitch you this idea. I want to do. This is the kind of videos I want to do.
Right.
Instead of us talking like teachers, I'd rather make myself the patient, and we'll go through it, and we'll just go through the steps on trying.
Oh, that's right. It was when the gait analysis.
The gait analysis, yeah.
Yeah.
So, mind you, when we first met, like I've always been the person of just put yourself in the driver's. Like I've always wanted to be the audience that I want to watch. So I was like, if I want to talk about this, Mohammed Cook has to actually go through the process. You watched one walk. You watched one pass. We didn't even get on the screen. I didn't even take my shoes off yet. You just saw me kind of, and you were like, okay, yeah, bro. I think you were just talking. I think it was a hip or I can't remember what it was.
One of your hips. I said one of your hips is weak.
Yeah,
and your calf is tight on the other side, and you're just like. What?
I explained to you that's how I've been running for years, and I guess somebody who has experience with hands-on experience can tell just in seconds. Where somebody who's like, oh, did you read the paper on this? Oh, you must have.
Yeah.
You must have.
Because that's what people think that's what new knowledge is taught as.
Right.
It's this whole battle of, do you go to college? So now I'm kind of reversed, right? Back when I was told, you're not college material. Mm-hmm. I think college now has become that. It's become regurgitation. It used to be centers of higher learning, right? Centers of higher understanding.
Right.
And I think I still promote, like to all three of my kids, was like, hey, go to college, not because I care about what you're learning. I want you to experience college. I want you to experience like the whole thing. Learning, but learn to understand. Don't learn to regurgitate.
Right.
Right? And I think that's what's getting lost. So now you see college going out of crazy, all of our new therapists that come to work for us are like, hey, I'm 150,000 in debt, 200,000 in debt for student loans. It's like, when did it all get that crazy? Because I know things get more expensive, but
obviously.
I was able to afford, I'd work a 3-month summer job and pay for my college.
It's wild. When I looked up the actual definition of the word university. It changed my life. Mm-hmm. Uni being prefix one, university, like a group of people, or like a learning group or something like that. Can't remember it. Don't quote me exactly. But it's everyone's under one learning. Everyone has different subjects, but we all learn under one.
So it's usually the university, and then there's the colleges underneath the university that specify.
But that's the reason why there's prereqs. That's the reason why we take all these courses, because we're supposed to be raising a generation of people, and essentially on how to think differently.
Right.
But somewhere between, and I can even put my finger on it, somewhere between the mid 80s and 2005. Well, no, the housing recession. It was 08.
08.
Yeah. Somewhere between there, college left it was the golden era of school being in like the mid 80s was dying out, and designer college was beginning.
Right.
And I think that's just, and I'm not talking about people going to, like, one of my closest friends, Ryan Taylor, my dog forever. He's in PT school right now, right? I'm not talking about that. I'm not talking about people that are in engineering programs, very specific trades and very specific pockets. I'm just talking about general education being the cost of a home. I don't remember. I mean, I wasn't around in the 80s, but it happened so fast.
Right.
So.
Yeah, and it was just that insidious increase, right? And nobody questioned it until it got so out of control. Now people are like, well, what the hell do I do now?
Right.
And now you're seeing the pushback of, if it's not for you, go get a vocation. Go learn a skill. Because that can springboard you just as far, if not further, instead of, like, and then be smart about it. That's the part that bugs me is like, all right, you want to go to college, how much money do you have? Right? Well, I can get student loans. Yeah, you got to pay that back.
Right.
But even with my daughter, super smart, 4.2 student, just
Oh, way above you.
yeah, way above. All my kids are smarter than I am. They don't have my experience in life, so I still teach them a thing or two.
Yeah.
But it was when she first said she wanted to go to college, and I was like, okay, cool. Where do you want to go? And she settled on the University of San Diego, which is a private school.
Okay.
Really expensive. And I was like, okay, what are you going to study? And she said, I don't know, maybe nursing. I said, great. I'm not paying for you to go to University of San Diego to do nursing. You can do nursing at Cal State Bakersfield or BC.
Right.
And then my ex said, okay, fine. She can do PT. I go, I ain't paying for her to go there for PT either.
Right.
Like, get your undergrad, get your prereqs at a reasonable school, a state school. Then, if we need to pay for a private school for you to go to PT school, at least it's for a purpose. The number of people that pay for exorbitant college, like why? There's no shame in saying, hey, I don't have the money to go to.
I'm a proud road runner.
Right.
I'm from Los Angeles, California. When I was in Los Angeles, I went to the auto tech school, did auto tech, and then I came out here to do electrical engineering, marketing, yada, yada. That's how the story unfolds. Right. But I will never understand that. Neil Brennan, one of the co-writers of the Chappelle Show, he talked about that. He said college is the only place where you give 18-year-olds these loans for them to essentially become DJs.
Right. So if you,
it's like,
what 18-year-old goes, hey, I want to buy a $250,000 house. What money you got? I ain't got nothing.
I got nothing.
Okay, here's 150. Like, no.
It's crazy.
But college is that one, and somehow it just morphed into that. And look, I'm a product of multiple degrees.
All levels of education.
But there's nothing wrong with figuring out, like, starting where you can start. Right? And knowing that the worst thing you can do is come out of school owing hundreds of thousands of dollars. You're already behind the 8 ball before you start life. Right? So why not just look at it and go, okay, look, this is what I can afford to do.
Right.
And it might be, hey, I can't afford it. I'm going to go to a vocational school. I'm going to learn a trade, and then I'll work on it. Right. You know, if I really want to broaden my horizons. I think travel is one of the greatest educators there is. Right. Luckily in baseball, the travel came to me. I got to learn about multiple cultures. Yeah. But I love to travel but travel to learn, travel to grow. Don't just travel to check things off. Right. Right. So many people here I went here and I saw that. Cool. Did you experience anything? Did you walk around?
Did you stay in a resort or did you walk outside?
Yeah. Did you really find out about the people, about their struggles? Or did you just go to the resort and be like, oh man, this is awesome?
I learned that when I went to the DR. I went to the DR, and I was recently with my wife now, girlfriend at the time. Me and her family, we were at the resort most of the time. And I made a video. I want to send it to you. Yeah, it's called What the Fuck is a Vacation? Right? What the fuck? And it's kind of a tongue-in-cheek. Are you going to escape or are you going to learn? And that was the whole cusp of the video. And it's a montage of everything I saw. So you got all this beautiful imagery, but it's me going crazy in the background talking about this is all fake.
Yeah, it is all fake.
And
most of those
resorts,
Caribbean islands and Mexico, you go to the resort.
It's not real. Like this is not real. I went to a club later on that night with my wife and some of her friends. Like this one and I said, this is nothing like that resort. Like, bro doesn't have shoes on.
Exactly.
Like, they had alcohol on every corner in that resort. Like, I couldn't go more than 30 feet without there being a bottle of alcohol. Here is literally, bro is riding a Vespa with no shoes. Right. Yeah. And then that's where I learned, okay, there's this traveling thing. There's levels to this.
Oh, yeah. There's so much more to learn. Yeah. And so, what's the point of it other than... But those countries, and I got to see the backside of that before I even ever went, right? Because the kids that were coming into baseball were the natives who were poor. Right. They got into baseball as the way out. And you still see it in America these days when you look at inner cities and stuff. Sports is the way out. Just like for these people from foreign countries. And they're, make no mistake, they're third world countries with some resorts. You wander out of that resort, you're not going to get very far before you see abject poverty. Right?
If you go too far out of that resort, you might not come back.
Right. There's that part too, right?
You might not come back.
So you got to be safe in it too. Don't just go down and move down there for a while and just check it out. You got to do a little research, make sure, how safe am I? So it's just, I think it's just that broadening your horizons, right? Like learning something new, being curious about the world.
Right.
I think that's kind of what's happening these days is people have changed curiosity into the latest video I can watch, or and then not understanding that there are algorithms that feed you more of what you watch.
Right.
So you're just in echo chambers.
Right.
So when are you stepping out to go,
wait a minute,
what's really going on here? What, and I think it goes back all the way, I mean, you just learn as you go that the world's hard to make sense of. So my experience is that to make sense of it, people start creating boxes and putting people in boxes. And that's where stereotypes come from. That's where hatred comes from. But if you've experienced it, you get to see that, wait a minute, why are the people that come from foreign countries, like Dominicans, so you got a black guy from Dominican Republic. Why is he treated different than a black guy from America?
Right.
Why is the white dude from the South still talking about the freaking Civil War?
Right. Going back
150 years ago, dude. Like, that was long overdue. And if you're really getting the history of it, some not good stuff came out of it.
Right.
But the more you can ask questions, and there's even stereotypes of, like, the business owner, right? That I follow. It's like, oh, he owns whatever. I don't care. I'm happier in flip-flops and shorts.
Right.
If you see me with a suit on, I'm at a wedding or a funeral. Right? Like, that's it.
No, your end of the year party.
Oh, the end of the year party. That's true. That was the 25th. That was the 25th. That wasn't just funeral. That was.
I was there.
So one time in 25 years. And everybody there was like, what the hell's the matter with him? But I had to suit up for that one. I'll suit up. I mean, I can do it. I think when you're authentically yourself, you don't have to remember how to be. Right? So I'm the same person. I walk in the clinic like this with a dry fit shirt on and sweats.
You're the most consistent.
I'm not trying to put on a shirt and tie and be like, oh, I'm the owner of the company. Nobody gives a damn. I don't even give a damn. It's like, it doesn't matter. It's not what it's about. It's about, like, and I'm just happy to talk to Yolanda, who's been our cleaning lady for 20 years. Any of my aides, assistants, you've seen, like...
No, I know the squad. I know the squad for sure.
But it's just like, people happy to see you because they know you're just who you're going to be.
People are happy to see you because they see the inside of you.
Right.
Not the outside of you. It's because how you've managed, I love to give flowers. How you run your company, especially to the size, you shouldn't be this way.
No.
You shouldn't be this way. Add to the fact that even your social circles are people, you talk about it, are up 3, 4, 5 times life. Like their kids are good.
Oh, yeah.
Right. And you even being in those circles and not changing who you are in the process.
Right. Yeah.
And I think this is a good, you're good, a good tie-in to go full circle. Why I think that this show itself is going to be different, and it's going to be different because you are different.
Right.
This is not another podcast of just I am the CEO of this and I become. It's honestly a conversation.
Step one.
You're right. Work hard. It's not that.
Get an employee handbook. Here's how you write it.
Right. Open 3 clinics. It's like
Yeah.
And it's somebody who when you talk and just how you maneuver, I'm not sure if you follow Mark Cuban at all.
Oh, yeah.
But like you and Mark Cuban are like, how you guys go about it is kind of the same way. It's like, just be a good person, you know. That's really the beginning and end of your ethos. It's like, be a good person, and then whatever happens next is what happens.
Yeah, it's just when you approach it that way, like, so yeah, I've got friends, and we're gonna have a variety of people on.
Right.
I mean, and they're all over the map. There's gonna be multi-millionaires, and there's gonna be a handyman. Like one of my good friends is a handyman.
Just trying to figure it out.
Right.
Yeah.
And
or figured it out and cool with it.
And he's like, you know, it's cool. Like, we'll go to lunch, and he'll be like, all right, so pick my brain, right? Like, well, at least if you buy me some drinks and lunch, I'll let you pick my brain a little bit.
Yeah.
But it's like, okay, so I'm thinking about doing this. What do you think about this? What do you think about that? And I was like, okay, well, approach it this way. But the dude's an awesome dude.
Yeah.
And he's legit. He does home repairs. He does mobile home repairs.
Oh, yeah, he's nice.
He's crawling in the dirt.
Yeah.
You know, and he's
so
always laughing.
So you say mobile home repairs. Yeah. That's hard. I have a homie who does that. That is very hard.
Oh,
it's very hard.
Terrible.
It is way harder than a home. You got to think about it. It's a home that moves.
Right. A lot of stuff can go bad.
Exactly.
A lot of stuff can go bad when it's in the ground.
Right. So imagine making him. Yeah, no, he's good with me. He's good.
So, but it's this. I'm just me with any of them.
Right.
And like, you know, and he can cook too.
Yeah.
But the cool part of hanging out with, like, one of the things we talked about, and we did this, and you'll see this exercise, right? What would you tell your 17-year-old self?
That's mine. Right? I say 20-year-olds on my Instagram.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we did this exercise, and it got to me, and I said, I would say, dude, you have no freaking idea where you're going to be.
Right.
Like, you can't, 17-year-old me would have never told you that I'd have a company with 250 employees, but I'd be free to screw around all the time, that I'd ride in people's private jets.
Yeah.
That, you know.
There's no way. You can't, because at that time, you're in Montana.
Right, yeah.
You're in Montana.
Yeah. I had only been on a jet 2 times in my life before I started with the Dodgers. So now, my buddy, hey, you want to go to Mexico? Yeah, hopefully we're taking your plane because mine's still in shop.
Right. It's crazy.
Mine's still broken down.
Yeah.
It's been broken down.
It's so funny. No matter where you go, what level, people always have a broke down car.
Oh, yeah.
It's always
Doesn't matter.
somebody, he put gas in it and broke down.
Like, was that? Yeah, But it's being authentically yourself is even like that, like this house, right?
Yeah.
So people are like, well, where do you want to move? You know, like, because when I got separated from my wife, like a friend of mine had a house in Seven Oaks. He's like, hey, no, you're going through a rough patch.
Yeah.
Just move in here and pay me what you can pay me for rent.
Yeah.
Right? Old school.
Yeah.
So I tasted that life, right? But when it came time to, I want to buy my house.
Yeah.
I could live wherever, but that's not what I wanted.
Right.
Right? And so you saw, and we'll do a tour one of these
Yeah.
days, but my house is meant to be just fun.
Yeah.
Because that's what I like, right?
Right.
Like, hey, when you come over here, you're going to be relaxed. We're going to have a good time. 2 bars is maybe a little too much, but, you know, you got to keep people happy. You really need a golf cart. But it's supposed to be that way because that's how I want the world to view me, right?
Right.
I want the world to be like, hey, dude, like, I walk around in shorts and flip-flops 90% of the time.
You do.
Listen, and then sweats and tennis shoes if I'm going to the clinic.
You're right.
Occasionally I have to go to these damn meetings, got to put shoes on and pants on. They suck, but it's just, it goes all the way through, right?
Yeah.
If you're truly authentic, right, it's not sometimes.
Yeah.
It's everything. It's who you're with. Who's your partner? Where do you live?
Right.
Are you trying to show people, or it's like, oh, I live in, the country club.
Right.
I don't care. I don't golf.
Yeah.
I mean, the one thing about running a company and growing a company from 1 employee to 250, there's not a lot of free time.
You're
You
right.
could be swinging sticks or anything else. Like,
Yeah.
you want to go golfing? Dude, I ain't got an hour, let alone 4 or 5 to go.
Yeah, golfing's an all-day thing. For somebody who plays, it's an all-day. You got to cancel everything.
I got to do it. I used to hack around a little bit, and I was like, dude, this isn't even. It's not even fun because I suck.
Yeah.
It's one of those sports that if you're going to do it, go all in.
You have to.
Because you're just going to get frustrated.
Yeah, 10 times out of 10.
And everybody else, you're like, how many strokes?
Yeah.
Ah, fuck you.
Yeah, right.
That's like, just put an F you down, okay? It was a lot. When I ran out of fingers and toes, I can't.
I stopped at that.
Give me a snowman. The hell with it. You got all snowmen.
Just all shapes on your scorecard.
Fill it in right now.
No, I feel you. Because you really do. Like from somebody just down to just the car you drive, the home you live in. Like I know you could really go crazy. Like you really could go crazy, and the fact that you turn it down because you're like, all that other stuff would just be for eyes, for other people, for their perception of me. It's not for me.
Right.
Like, what is for me is right here, is the golden tee, you know.
1987 original right there, baby.
Right. We got the Jurassic Park, the jersey. And that's why I'm happy. I love this angle because they can see, but they can't see because there's so much more. Yeah. But for what they can see, it's pretty cool. Like, it's the same.
Yeah, and I think it's like one of the things is like talking about partners and spouses is if you got to find the person will let you be you.
Right.
Right.
I was going. I didn't know if I was going to ask about that, but I was like, I
think that's just part of getting back into the manifesting thing. Like I think the last 7 years of my life has been one of my biggest life growths because 10 years ago I hired a CEO to run Terrio Therapy. Brilliant dude. He's the yin to my yang, right? I went through a couple of iterations of trying to find somebody like me to run the company to free me up, but they were too much like me. I needed the opposite. I needed Ken to come in, and we're going to have him on.
Yeah. Oh, I'm excited.
Super smart, but he's everything I'm not, and I'm everything he's not. So there was another great book. It's called Traction.
Okay.
So I read that book, and that's what caused me to hire Ken. Because it talks about real successful businesses is a two-headed monster. The one is the visionary, creative.
Steve Jobs.
Right.
And then you have.
But you need the backup. That's
Steve
the
Wozniak.
logistics. Right. Walt Disney had Roy Disney.
I didn't know that.
So Walt was the visionary. Roy was on going, you know how much this is going to cost? It's expensive. Maybe we don't need that many rides, right?
Right.
Let's wait for another blockbuster movie before we add another ride.
We need another Toy Story, bro.
And that was and I think so we're going to get into a lot of stuff. Entrepreneurship, scalability, I think is huge. Because with scalability, you need the Ken.
Yeah.
Right? You need the numbers logistics guy. But when you try to be it all, you can't be good at everything.
Right.
So talking about that, having people, just life, right? Enjoying life, like travel, food, art, music. When you start bringing that up and manifesting that in your life, like, who do I really want to be with, right? Well, first of all, everybody's got to start with, who the hell am I?
Right. Learn that first.
Start that first.
Yeah.
You always have to start with, who really am I? Then, who do I want to be? Like, what is my vision for myself?
Right.
Once you have that down, you can start thinking about a we, right? But if you jump from, hey, I just need to have somebody to live with.
Then that's weird.
Then you get into law of attraction, right? So it's whatever you're putting out in the universe is what you're going to draw in.
Right.
So if you're putting out negativity and toxicity, that's who you're going to pull in.
Right.
Except for those crazy few of us that think that you can like, go out and change somebody, right?
Right. Can't turn them into a housewife.
Like I tell,
can't do it, bro.
I tell a lot of people, like,
keep trying.
Hey, once they show you who they are, believe them.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
So thanks for showing me who you are. We're done. Or, I want to bring you closer, right?
Right.
You're somebody who I'd want in my inner circle because you're empowering, you're positive.
Right.
You know, you're creating something that's awesome versus the naysayers, the negative, the toxic people.
Right.
It's like, okay, great. Why don't you take that mess somewhere else?
And feel free. And there's somebody for you.
Yeah.
There's somebody for you who
There is somebody who likes
who enjoys that, who can relate with you in that.
Who wants
it's
chaos.
Just not here.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Chaos, drama, toxicity, negativity. Cool.
Yeah.
Go be you and enjoy it. Even though you won't because you're negative.
Yeah, right.
I want to find the person that is that, right?
Yeah.
And even if they're not, they don't have to be identical to you.
Yeah.
They just have to, like, love that part of you.
Right.
You know, like we were talking earlier with the
who
pool.
you organically are, who you are when you first wake up.
Right. And just be consistent with it.
Right.
Like, because I create a lot of stuff in my head. Most of it scares people. No, it's just because it's like I just have that, and this is the part I don't know where it came from. Is like the visionary part of how to do things. But I think it comes back to confidence and stepping back. Even though everybody says, "Oh, he's a hard charger, he'll go."
Yeah.
Once he sees something, he goes. And we've created a lot of stuff, and we'll talk about it. But the first step is actually another great book's Untethered Soul, right?
Say it one more time.
The Untethered Soul.
Untethered Soul. Okay.
So it's a little yoga-ish, but the whole idea is that we get caught up in the conversations in our head, right? The negative, the positive, the angel, the demon, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
Our subconscious is constantly telling us, you can't do it. Don't you remember that time you failed? Don't fall on your face again.
Yeah.
Your positive side saying, no, we can do this, let's go. You watch the motivational speeches.
Yeah.
Watch Rocky for the 10,000th time. But then you sit there and go, so that battle's going on. And what I loved about that book was it said, true consciousness is being able to raise above that and pay attention to that conversation, right?
Right.
Not interact with it. So you're not going, yeah, I believe you. Oh, he's got a good point. Oh, you just back up. So when I start getting like stressed out or like, oh, what do I do about this situation? I'll think, hang on. Who's talking right now? Like raise above it. And in that book, they talk about that negative side, personify it. Make it a person in your head.
Right.
So it's
But I feel like that walks into the space of, that almost can walk into like, respectfully, sociopath.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, you got to be careful.
Yeah, you got
You gotta be careful which voice.
Yeah.
But if you can just calm yourself, right? Especially in this chaotic world, just be like, all right. It's almost like you're judging a debate, right? You're listening to the two sides present their topic.
Right.
Just as an objective viewer of it, observer of it.
Right.
What side do I lean more towards?
And then you move accordingly.
Yeah,
from
and
that.
then it's like, no, this is all in. Let's go this way.
Right.
We all have, I mean, look, nobody's going to get through this life without baggage. Nobody's going to get through this life without hurt. Nobody's going to get through this life without tragedy. It's what do you do with it afterwards? So what's the next? So those things will become the next evolution, or can be, or they can become your destroyer.
Right.
Depending on how you deal with whatever happens.
But even in that, I'm curious to know your take on it. When you talk about things that commonly destroy people, you went through a divorce, right? And that's what's been known. I don't know how well you can manage two voices in the midst of somebody that you essentially created one voice with through kids and business. So how would you go about that if somebody who's going through?
Well, I think it's the first step is understanding you've got to go through the grieving process.
Okay.
Right? It's not a light switch, right? You don't just flip it off and be like, all right, that's done, move on.
Right.
It's like, okay, there's disappointment, there's anger, there's denial, there's frustration. So realize that's just a normal part of human behavior. So then when you get to the other, so then you start thinking, what can I control? I can control me.
Right.
What do I want to accomplish? What am I good at? What am I not good at?
Right, right.
You know, going from there.
Okay.
So
Yeah, all right. So it's just once again, it's organizing and logistics of
yeah,
your.
I'm gonna run to.
Go ahead, do your thing.
little boy's room.
I got you.
Yeah. Speaking of nature, go.
I'm gonna pause it real quick. Yeah, so tomorrow the only difference is I'll have the stands. Perfect. The only difference is tomorrow I'll have the stands and I can, or I'll have the table mounts,
Right.
or, so you can just sit them right here. And
Perfect.
So 'cause
Works
I
like
don't,
this,
this
too.
only thing that looks gross on ours is this, but I need to see this to
Right.
make sure it's recording. But
Where we at?
we were at divorce, and then you said
Oh, yeah.
on the steps, yeah, on navigating out of it.
Yeah,
And-
I think so. It's just another learning experience, right? So I was married 25 years, and at first everything was okay.
right.
But I think the biggest, and what I've told my two of my kids are married now. And
Okay.
My youngest son, not yet.
Yeah.
Take your time. But my advice to them was not only look at who they are now, but can they grow with you?
Right.
Because I think that becomes the backdrop to a lot of problems. Is
Yeah.
if one person is, so one of my books, I don't think I've given you a copy of my book. So I wrote this book called Life Pioneers. And the whole thing is about my life story, but juxtaposed with three groups of people I think there are.
Okay.
One is there's settlers in the world.
Okay.
Right? They're the settlers. They plop down and they don't move.
Okay.
Right? They're inside their little fortress. And I think it goes all the way back to Europe and ancient cultures, right?
And this is a book you've written.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, but there's settlers that are the people that, they'll be in their settlement, and it's like my hometown.
Right.
You look at small towns, and a lot of people never leave their hometown.
Right.
Never venture out. When you read the numbers of how few people have ever been out of the state or out of the country,
Out of their
their
county.
world, because you're taught from an early age, this is your reality. This is where you belong. Your role here is to find a job in this
Ecosystem.
Yeah, in this little world.
Yeah.
This is your world.
Yeah.
You can read about all this other stuff. And so in the book, I equate it to the flat earth, right? The flat earth theory. Because what was the flat earth theory really? Although I know there's still people out there that believe it's flat, but
Yeah.
I've flown around it. It's not, I didn't see an edge anywhere.
Yeah.
So, and by the way, it'd be really hard to spin as a cube.
Yeah.
But so there's just that becomes our world.
Yeah.
And the size of that's the original box that people live in, right?
Yeah.
And the reason they told people that is as a control mechanism. So you tell the people in Europe, look, you go too far out in the ocean, you fall off the edge. So you stay where you're supposed to be. Don't ever go look, because you might not come back. Kind of like we were
Right.
talking about. That's still true in some areas. You got to be careful where you go.
Yeah.
But not because you're going to fall off the edge of the earth.
Yeah.
But it was a way of getting people to understand that you just stay where you are. You're safe here.
Right.
So that's the settlers. And then the migrators are a different breed that they'll move, so like the pilgrims. If you really look at the history, right? Columbus almost discovers America. He got close, right?
Right.
He actually found the Bahamas, but
Whatever.
details.
Yeah.
But he did. And was he the first one here? Probably not, but he got the record, right?
He got the credit.
So, but that was in, what, 19 or 1200?
Yeah,
whatever that number is. There's a song about it.
Yeah.
It's over 200 years, 250 years before the Pilgrims come. Why wasn't there a flood of people immediately? He goes back and goes, hey, there's not an edge. There's actually a whole nother country over there
Right.
that you could go to. So it must have been great in Europe at that time. No, it's the Black Death. People still wouldn't leave. So the Pilgrims leave.
Black Plague.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't all roses
No,
in
yeah.
Europe at that time, right?
London Bridge is falling down. That's
So
what it's about.
why would you stay there if
Right.
you know there's a new world you can go to?
Right, right.
Because you were conditioned to stay in your box.
Right in your bubble.
So what do the pilgrims do when they get here? Build settlements, right? Then look at the history of from when they landed to how many hundreds of years go by before we start exploring the western United States. We stayed on the eastern seaboard
Right.
until the gold rush, when there was a reason to get across the country.
Because now we incentivized it.
Right.
Yeah.
So now it's like,
yo,
hey, it
gold.
sucks here, and there's a
There's
chance
gold.
to get rich over here.
So,
Yeah, do I stay here and die, or do I die trying to get to this better thing?
yeah.
But then the migrators will move from one settlement to another.
Right.
But then there's the pioneers. And the pioneers are the ones, like the Columbuses, whether or not he really found it first, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
But there's those people that go out to explore. I want to just go see for myself what's out there.
Right.
So that is what led to me changing my life was, well, wait a minute. If you can, like going out on your own and starting your own business, right? That was a pioneering movement. You're going to take the chance. I'm going to take the trip. I'm going to see.
Yeah.
Don't know what I'm going to find. But that was successful. What if you apply that to every area of your life, right? So I know uber successful entrepreneurs who have horrible relationships.
I'm thinking Uber, the food. I'm like,
Oh,
okay.
no, not Uber food.
Yeah.
Sorry, that's an old school term.
Yeah. Like, wait, Uber, okay.
Very successful. Although I'm kind of getting hungry. But they're these incredible, successful business people, but their family relationships are bad, or their
Right.
personal relationships are bad. Their health is bad. So what if you took that pioneering spirit into the different areas of your life to
Right.
truly become a life pioneer, that you're going to create the total life you want, right?
Right.
All areas. Like take that same spirit into, and not everybody wants to be an entrepreneur, but okay, so fine. So you just look at the areas of life: physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, and financial health and wellness, right?
Yeah.
It's not the same for everybody.
Oh, yeah. It's a
And-
spectrum.
Yeah.
It's
so
a spectrum of within each factor.
what is successful
To you.
To you, and then you got to put on the other side of that time, because time's our only limited source.
Right.
So if you talk to somebody and they go, "Oh, I want to be compete in the CrossFit Games," or "I want to be a bodybuilder,"
Right.
or "I want to be a professional athlete." Okay, cool. You could, professional athlete if you have the genetics. Right? Like, there is some background to this, but that's gonna take, and you see bodybuilders. Oh, that guy's on steroid.
Yeah.
Irregardless, that's still 4 to 5 hours a day in the gym.
Yeah.
Right? I
Yeah.
mean, that doesn't, you don't just walk in the gym, walk out and be like, "Whew,
Yeah.
I'm big."
Yeah.
I don't care what steroids you take. I've known a lot of people that took steroids that didn't work out, and
Oh, damn.
newsflash, doesn't freaking work.
Oh,
right?
okay, okay.
You're just messing up your system with no outcome.
Okay. Okay.
So it goes along with it. It just produces an environment where you can maximize your growth, muscle growth, right?
okay.
The other side is it can maximize any growth, which is my pushback on
Yeah.
kids doing it. It's like, hey, look, you better be sure that you don't have cancer in your system, or you don't
Right.
have, you're not
Is that
pushing
your hot
to-
take on the?
Yeah, I think
Because we never hear from
we
the
just
PT's
have
perspective.
to be honest about all this stuff, right? You're going to say, "Oh, steroids are bad." Okay, if your 50th round or NFL draft's coming up, if you're probably not in the draft if you haven't done something.
Right.
But
Right.
how do you tell the guy? Like, I saw professional baseball players. Like, and baseball cracks me up because they're about 10 years behind the NFL in performing PEDs.
Okay.
Right?
All right.
So the 80s came along with the...
You got the golden era.
Oh, yeah.
Of baseball.
What they took... Baseball's like, how come football players are getting big? Oh, they're using Diana Ball and all the old school steroids.
Yeah.
Well, NFL moved on from that a long time ago. The baseball players started doing all that stuff, right?
Yeah,
Old school steroids. They did when they did that book, that article called Game of Ghosts or whatever it was called, Game of Shadows, when the whole Barry Bonds thing, and they said at that time they had tests to detect about 200 different kinds of steroids. This is 90s.
Yeah.
At that time, there were over 2,000 designer steroids. They didn't have tests for them.
Right.
So the drug manufacturers were way ahead of the testers, right? And until you get your hands on it, you can't create a test because what's that little marker that you can find that you'd be like, oh, you're on this.
Right.
So that's the game that's being played. However, I saw low round draft picks in Major League Baseball that found a little something and ended up making millions of dollars.
Right.
So you're going to tell that person
Yeah.
it wasn't worth the risk? I'm not saying to do it.
Yeah.
I'm just saying sometimes there's a reason.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's up to each person to say, does the risk outweigh it?
Right.
Now,
because each person's body is different, just like how everyone calls successful is different. As humans, we're
and it's just
multiple factors happening at the same time.
It's the whole argument of nature versus nurture, right? Like, how much of us is DNA?
Right.
And how much of us is the environment we're raised in?
Right.
Well, the answer is it's both, right? If you're a 5'10" white guy from Montana,
Yeah.
and my dream is playing the NBA, ain't happening, right? I didn't even try to play on my high school team or recreational team because it's like, I got it. I'm short, thick.
Yeah.
My job's to lift heavy stuff.
Yeah.
Right? That's my DNA. So you have to have the combination of both. But the nurture side, I have a little more issue with because just because you're raised a certain way doesn't mean that's who you are.
Right.
Right? And I think I'm more into that side. Yeah, I mean, you got to look at your DNA and know, hey, if you're not... If you look at the size of players now compared to the 80s, 70s, 80s, 90s.
You're talking what sport? Like
any of them.
Oh shit. Okay.
I mean, back in the day when Wilt Chamberlain and...
Oh, yeah. They call it the mailman era.
Yeah, the freaks of nature, right?
Yeah.
There was very few 7-foot tall people back in the 70s.
Right.
So you have an advantage, and you're athletic.
Right.
Bill Russell. I mean, just phenomenal athletes. It helps to be 7 foot tall and be athletic.
Right.
I've met several 7 foot tall people that could barely walk. Right. So, well, genetically, he should be. Well, no, he's just tall.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? And then look at the size. What freaks me out playing football is back my high school team. Our biggest guy was like 240 pounds. Now that's a small linebacker.
Yeah.
Right? Linemen are now 350 and can move.
Right. And
that's
quick.
A scary human being.
Yeah.
Right?
And quick on their feet.
That's a physics problem.
Yeah.
Right? You got a 330-pound man who can move.
That's scary.
That's a physics. Don't be in front of that physics problem because you're going to find out real quick.
Yeah. That is.
There's going to be opposite reaction. It's going to be you flying the other way.
The force being applied to you is going to cause you.
Oh, yeah, you're gone.
But it's so interesting, just from that perspective, or weighing out the risk and the reward because of the factors of what that person considered to be important or what they consider to be successful. It's just it becomes a gumbo which is why we all just can't be categorized into that one box.
Right. Yeah, you can go look. You can find. I mean, the sad part is the amount of money in professional sports now was never there before, right? I mean, you look back at the 50s and 60s and 70s, those guys didn't get paid anything.
Yeah, no, it was a joke.
And now there's such a draw. When you hear that Shohei signs for $700 million, every kid in Japan's playing baseball now.
Right. Oh, it's 300 million shy of $1 billion.
Right.
That is crazy. And it's like a lifetime contract. I don't even follow baseball.
10-year.
10-year.
And he deferred
Yes.
$680 million. He's only taking $2 million a year. Yeah. Everybody's like, oh, well, first of all, that's not sad. It's
it's really
that's
good.
a pretty good living. Couple that with the $50 million he makes a year in endorsements in Japan. He all right.
Yeah.
He's
chilling.
Yeah. He's going to be able to get some Christmas presents. He'll make it through the winter. Yeah, somehow.
He'll get through.
And oh, by the way, I have $680 million in 10 years that
just sitting.
Generational wealth.
Yeah.
But the amount of work that goes into it, I think, is where people don't understand it. Like my son-in-law, there's a picture for the Oreos. But if you really look at that lifestyle of what it takes, I mean, it's not just going out and throwing a ball.
No.
It's your workouts, your nutrition, and then your mental side, right?
Right.
And I think that's what trips a lot of people up. So when you're looking at this and you hear all these parents, everybody's got their kid, and you want them to be an amazing athlete.
Right.
A lot of that's just trying to fulfill something in you.
Right.
So you're projecting out. And that's the other thing people do all the time is project themselves onto other people.
Right.
We do it as parents. I knew that my kids, I was like, hey, you guys have fun. Play sports, but play sports to have fun.
Yeah.
Play sports to learn from it, right?
Yeah.
Learn what it's like to be on a team. Learn what it's like to have the ups and downs.
Right. But the parents today all want their kids to get that $680 million contract.
You see that. But
and sometimes it's not even for the kid. They just want to cut it to 680.
Right. But do you really know what that's going to take?
No.
The years of work. It's the 10,000 hour rule, right?
Right.
Which I still think is an amazing thing that people need to understand is you don't become world class through your genetics. It's 10,000, whether it's, and if you read that book, right, it's the Beatles, right? There's a book out there talking about it, but they go through all these different cases like the Beatles. Well, the Beatles are this phenomenal group, right?
Yeah.
They actually played in their early days. There was a section of England that was strip clubs, and they had live bands.
Did not know.
So you'd have to play like a 6 to 8 hour set. The live band would. So you had to learn that much material. And pretty soon you get bored, so you start playing with other music, right? To be like, all right, I'm sick of playing this song, let's play something else.
Yeah.
So they equate that to that 10,000 hours of playing and playing all different musics. And then all of a sudden they come up with the sound. The sound was just a hodgepodge of different music.
The things they had to memorize over the matter of years.
It goes all the way like Bill Gates, right?
Yeah.
He was just at a school that happened to have a computer, happened to be a nerd. Sorry if that's an offensive word these days, but still, I'm old school.
Yeah.
But so if you're not going to be on the sports team and you have a computer and that's what you're into,
that's your 10,000.
Yeah.
That's your 10,000.
And you started early and then started figuring out, but then have that curiosity. So the point of the 10,000 hours is it's deliberate daily practice.
Right.
Right? You can play the same song every day and you'll get better.
Right.
You're never going to become world class because you can play one song.
Right.
So that's where you get in the argument of strengths and weaknesses, right? So I want to build my strengths, but I also have to find out which of my weaknesses I need to work on to get me to that level.
Right.
And that's where you need coaching. You need somebody to open your eyes to your blind spots. And I think very few of us have that honest person in our life. They're like, hey, you're really good at this. This needs work.
But you even started a program with people that you've been working on who've come to you for that type of, to help find their flaws in their everyday systems.
Yeah, I do business coaching now. It's what, like, when I gave Ken the role of CEO, or hired Ken, gave it to him. Because when we first started talking after reading that book, I was like, hey, look, this is what I want you to do. I don't care what the title is. But these are the things I need you to do.
Right.
And he said, well, if I'm going to do all of it, because we were talking about should you be the COO, but I want you overseeing budgets too, so that's finance, which is not usually under the COO's role, it's a CEO's role.
Right.
Or CFO's role. He said, well, it would be the CEO. I'm the CEO,
Right.
at that time.
Yeah.
And I said, okay. He said, what do you mean okay? I said, you can be the CEO.
You got it. Here are the keys.
Yeah, exactly. Literally. I gave him my office.
He said, it's all you, big dog.
Here's your office. I'm going to back up out of here.
Yeah, I'm about to go home.
I'm going to go play. I'll let you know when I have a new idea.
Yeah.
But I did that at that time because I wanted him, and we'll get into it more when we interview him. But
Yeah.
I didn't want it to become the mom-dad thing,
Yeah.
right? I didn't want people to go in and he's the CEO and I'm the president.
Yeah.
I didn't want him to go into his office and be like, hey, let's do this, and he says no.
Right.
Well, all right, I'll go ask to see what dad says.
Right.
So I removed dad out of the equation. Where it's like, hey,
You got it.
he said no.
It's a no.
It's a no.
It's a no. That's it.
Don't come ask me. First of all, you're gonna have to find me.
Yeah.
But that's when I was like, okay, what do I want to do now? And the one thing I've always loved is coaching, like sports. I coached all my kids. But it's actually like, I thought, okay, what if I helped coach business owners?
Right.
Right? Mm-hmm. Have those conversations. Do a mastermind group where I can get other brilliant people in a room and share thoughts, share ideas.
Right. Right.
And then meet with them one-on-one and be like, all right, what are you struggling with? What are your goals? Where are we trying to get?
Right.
No different than a sports coach, right?
Right.
And I think it's another problem but that moniker of coach is a dangerous moniker too, right?
You dissing coach now? Hold on.
No, you got to be careful.
Okay.
Who do you put your trust into?
Okay. Oh, okay.
Because
I've
I've had some horrible coaches and I've had some amazing coaches.
But once you say that, you didn't recognize the horrible coach until you realize,
Right.
it, like, I think I want to offer some pushback. I don't think there's such thing as a horrible coach. If you recognize that they're doing their job wrong, that means you just surpassed their knowledge level or their capabilities.
True.
So it's not necessarily like they're a good coach to somebody.
Right. Yeah, they can get you to a spot.
Right. But if you surpass that, they're not necessarily a bad coach.
Right.
You just outlived the knowledge.
I think there are a few out there that get into it for the wrong reasons.
Okay. Oh,
right?
okay.
You know, that's what I put into a bad coach.
Okay.
What is that coach's? Because you've seen the movies, right? The coach that is hell bent on winning, doesn't matter if he destroys his players, doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Those in my mind are bad coaches. But I think it's just knowing yourself, and that goes for the coach as well as the player.
Right.
Everybody's got to come up through little leagues and high school, and you might not be. I mean, that coach is doing the best he can do.
Right.
Trying to do what he can do with what he's got.
Right.
But he's limited by his knowledge. So how much is he growing? You can still help a mediocre player get better, right? But at some point, to your point, you've got to realize that, okay, this coach got me to this level. I need to go to the next level.
That's it.
And keep moving up. And, you know, men's sports more than women's sports, because I don't understand women's sports. No, it's just never had that experience. But men's sports have been around so long that there's already that hierarchy, right? There's the high school coach that goes up, you get on a good college team, and all of a sudden people are like, well, this guy was an okay high school player, and he became an exceptional college player.
Right.
Because he had exceptional coaching.
Right.
There's a reason that players navigate to these big programs.
Yeah.
Because they can take you, you're already good.
But there's the next step.
And you have to be willing to be coached.
Yeah.
Too.
Yeah.
So that coach can be the smartest coach in the world, but if you think that he didn't know what he's talking about.
Right.
Then you're shortcutting what you can learn from that person.
Right. And I think that's where, and that's my side of danger that I pay attention to.
And what are they learning and what are they growing? So like in the business world, like I coach people who have businesses exponentially bigger than mine. Right. What I offer them is that objective, holistic view of the world, right? Mm-hmm. Like, let's work on this. We can get you to this level, but you have to be willing to do what it takes to get there. Right. And then this whole, and we're going to get into all this, but life balance is a weird thing to me because I think the premise is wrong, I mean, I get trying to balance
Let's just go there. Let's just
life
go
and
there.
work.
Yeah.
But if you understand physics, balance is based on a fulcrum, right? So you can balance anything on a fulcrum.
Right.
Right? You can get it balanced unless the fulcrum moves. Right? If the fulcrum moves, everything goes out of balance.
Right.
So in this whole life work balance, it's only attainable if the fulcrum doesn't move. But underlying that, you have family pressures and business pressures that are constantly moving the fulcrum back and forth. So first thing is to realize that happens. So then what do you do? Well, what you do is say, okay, you have to set up your world such that, okay, if something happens in my family that pulls me that way, I need to recognize it as early as possible and front load the other side. I need to weight the other side. So if I have something happen in my family that pulls me over, I need the people on the business side that can carry the weight.
Right.
To wait for it to balance back up, or vice versa. That work, a crisis happens at work. You have to have that relationship with your partner that says, hey, shit's hitting the fan. I got to go MIA for a while.
Right, right.
I got to save
Yeah.
the golden goose here.
Yeah.
Which means I'm going to need to lean on you a little bit more. But be upfront about it so it's not like, oh, you're just gone all the time now. And you don't tell your partner that, yeah, because of, I told you about the crisis. If they're not involved in it and don't understand what all that means, they don't have to be involved in the daily decisions, but be like, look, this is going on. It's going to take this much more of my time to get this thing under control. And then life will shift back. But it's, anything in life is just a pendulum, right? Light versus dark, business versus family.
Yin and yang.
Yang and yang.
You and kin.
You just got to understand, like, the wilder it swings, the more energy it's building up, right? So can you stay more in an even keel where the swings aren't so wide? And then be flexible in that to say, look, okay, I'm getting pulled over to this side a little bit.
Right, right.
But the more rigid we get, I think it's one of the things we learn as we get older, right? Being rigid about something isn't the answer.
No.
I mean, there's some things you need to be rigid on, like values. And
Yeah, we're not talking about that, but
but just know, as this thing's swinging, I need to just flow with it, right?
Right.
Just go with it, relax, understand it.
Look at both sides, like you talked about earlier.
You just gotta figure
stop,
out.
evaluate, and don't become a product of it, but analyzing it from the
Because
top.
we react, right? And I think that's back to knowing yourself, right?
Yeah.
Back to knowing me. It's, okay, something happened. It's my reaction to it that's either going to make it swing wildly out of control or mitigate it and be like, okay,
thank you.
wait a minute. Okay, yeah, this happened. Is it the end of the world? Is it? Because we like to catastrophize stuff, right? Like, oh my God, this is
the end of the world.
I mean, I'm old enough now that I've gone through multiple ends of the world. Right? It's like every few years there's a new thing that's just going to destroy everything. It's
yeah.
Oh, acid rain. Oh, now it's a hole in the ozone. And people, then you see these wild swings. Unfortunately, I think what's happened in the current world is the two sides have gone and got stuck, right? So you're stuck on any topic you bring up, you'll immediately find the people stuck on one side and stuck on the other side. The solution's somewhere in the middle, right?
Right.
And the solution's actually conversations, which is part of the reason of doing all this is let's have the conversations. What is reality? And what can we learn from other people? So part of what I want to do on this is not only talk to Uber, not uber successful, but very successful business people and tell their stories of ebbs and flows, right? Because there's nobody out there that's just had a straight line. But also understand that you can build it. You just have to understand it.
Right.
And just look and just be like, all right, what do I really want to create?
All right.
What am I willing to put into it? What am I willing to do to get there? Versus, no, this is who I am.
Right.
And it's just having a curious mind, right? And I didn't. through most of my life.
Oh, I was like, wait a minute. No, you definitely have.
Yeah, but it came from opening up and meeting new people and having those conversations like, okay, well, you don't know what it's like to be gay.
Yeah.
You're right. I don't.
No idea.
But I'm willing to learn. Like,
I'm willing to have the conversation.
yeah, I want to have the conversation. Like, okay, what is it that you're facing? That
Exactly.
I've got friends who have gay children who are married, and it always it's funny when it's like
There's little nuance.
Back in the '80s, yeah, it was
Crazy.
Like
The 80s
there's a lot of
was
stupid
wild.
shit happening,
Yeah.
right? Like just because it's something different that you can't understand, then you hate that person.
Right.
But what I learned through my experience with the Dodgers and life is that there's bad people, right?
Everywhere.
I don't care color, creed, religion, sexual orientation. So why are we lumping them all into one box instead of saying, oh, that person's whatever? So all people, like, stop. That's not true.
Right.
What's true is I know idiots of all races, of all religions. So, are you a racist? No, I'm an idiotist, right? I can't stand idiots. Like, so are you a sexist? Are you a homophobe? Are you a racist? No, I'm an idiotist. Like, I think if you're going to hurt somebody because of who they're in love with, you're an idiot. I think if you're going to judge somebody because they have more melatonin in their skin, you're an idiot. If you're going to judge somebody because they're a criminal, that's smart. That's like, hey, I'd love to come over to your house. Hey, you're a mass murderer. No. Like,
Right.
no.
That
No,
makes sense.
I don't want you around my kids. Oh, you're a pedophile. No, you're not babysitting my kids. Sorry. It's just,
Yeah.
it is
I
what
like
it is.
that. You're an idiotist.
Yeah, there's
Keep the idiots away from me.
exactly.
I like that, man. I'm using that tonight. I'm using that tonight.
Oh, you're an idiot. Sorry, we
Yeah,
can't hang out
I
anymore.
Can't hang out. No idiot. I'm an idiotist. Sorry. What?
I am juxtaposed. I do not respect idiots. At all.
None. I know. I have none. To be completely honest with you, Tim, I think that this show is really going to open up all realms of conversation because of your realms, just the different groups you're in, your life experiences, the places you've been, and all that. And I think that when I clip it up, because the power is going to be in the clips. Right. When I clip this up, I think you're going to open at least some dialogue. I can guarantee dialogue in the Kern County region, but I'm hoping to taking it to the West Coast.
Yeah.
Because I see it. Now that me talking to you for an extended period of time,
right.
Even though this is like our third or fourth conversation along, but like I know for a fact I want to see you with the carpenter homie, and then with Ken, and then with whoever. Like I would like to. I think we got something.
Well, I think it's also in just the curiosity side too. I think have the conversations. Like during this show, I want to find like somebody from the Jewish community. Right?
Yeah. Oh.
So what does your religion teach about what's meant to be? Like, is there really because I just want to learn.
Yeah.
Because I want to know, like, you really think that God micromanages everything, or there's a pathway you're supposed to go down? But I'd love to hear from the main religions. I'd love to hear from the Jewish community, the Sikhs, the Hindus, the Buddhists, because if you get rid of all the titles, there's another really good book called The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle, and he was the first one that I read that talked about, if you look at the major religions, the premises of them all are very similar.
Exactly the same.
Be a good person, do good acts.
Mind your business.
Mind your business, yeah.
Mind your business. How about that one?
Like, I don't need to be involved in that, thanks. No, not interested. And it's just having fun too, right? Having fun, learning, and not, the only one we won't have on the show is the idiots, unless we want to show.
Yeah.
We'll call it the idiot show, where we bring in idiots that you're so locked in on your belief of the world in such a finite view.
Right. And you're not willing to even open up.
Yeah.
That's what makes you idiot. Your view doesn't make you the idiot.
No.
It's how you react to the opposing opinion is what makes you the idiot.
Yeah. You see somebody and right off the bat you're like, oh,
Right.
I was a bad person, right?
Right.
It's you need to have the conversations and hang out with everybody, right? Like at least good people. But find out their stories. Find out why they believe what they believe.
Right.
And you're not passing judgment on it.
Right,
You're just
right.
saying, well, I never, because out of all of my years and all my different stuff I've done, there's always a few nuggets in there, right? That you can glean from people. And then it's like, okay, cool. I never thought of it that way.
Right.
You know, funny story about baseball. I can't remember what year it was. Probably the first year or second year. But it was when boom boxes were big, right? It's the 80s. Everybody got a boom box. So I learned it was called a ghetto blaster, right? That was the name. So I mentioned it one day, and a couple of the black guys on the team were like, "Why do you call it that?" And I'm like, "I thought that was the name."
Right.
Like, no, it's a boombox. I was like, "So you inadvertently stepped into a racist comment."
Yeah.
I was like, "All right, my bad.
Yeah.
I didn't know."
Accident.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, okay, got it. Learn from it, right? Instead of being an idiot and still calling it the rest of my. Now I'm an idiot if I still. Well, whatever, man. I'm gonna call it.
I'm gonna call it what I want.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's what we always called it.
No. Oh, got it.
Yeah.
Eyes open.
Now I know.
And I think that's part of that. We need to have those conversations. Like, you might say something stupid that you learned
Yeah.
because you've never experienced another culture.
Right.
But when you do, if you don't adjust,
Then you're
right.
congratulations, you're the village idiot.
You're the village idiot. And by the way, we're not going to let you off. Well, I guess we do sometimes.
Sometimes you gotta let the village idiot converse with their other village idiots and let them.
Just realize what it is.
Yeah.
You
You
know,
gotta
like, all
let
right,
them.
got it. So judge people on that, not on anything else.
I'm with you.
And I think the other big thing that I want to accomplish with this all is, I think the more stories we tell, because it's very easy to look at successful people and think, oh, they had it easy.
Right.
When you start hearing their stories and you start realizing the human potential, it's unbelievable.
Yeah.
So,
When you hear other stories, people start realizing. I never would have thought a white guy out of Montana will relate to a black kid out of LA, being myself.
Right.
And I hear you, and I'm hearing you speak, and I'm like, oh shit, I'm fine. I was like, oh shit, I'm fine. I'm fine. Like,
Yeah,
I'm
you're
fine. I'm on my trajectory.
Yeah,
like
you're
sometimes
on the
you
path.
get right. And sometimes it gets the best of me. That's why I was like, if we tell these stories just like this,
right.
this will be easy.
Yeah,
Easy. It's easy.
and I have friends who have huge businesses
Yeah.
that were homeless at one point.
Right. But no one knows.
But nobody
that.
knows it.
They just
And-
know they're up now. So
And now they're viewed in their original communities as, oh, well,
Right.
he just thinks he's better than everybody.
right,
If you knew what that dude had accomplished,
you wouldn't be saying that.
you wouldn't be saying it. I mean, there are silver spooners out there.
Of course, we're going to talk about that.
Yeah.
But I'm saying the majority of people, and I don't even want to unpack that. There, a lot of the silver spooners, they're a very small percentage of the successful population. Of when you start people who are successful, it's not a majority. It's not a majority. Now, I can't tell you the equity breakdown versus who got it from silver and who didn't.
Right.
But there's more who got it out the mud than you think.
Right. Yeah, there's another book called The Millionaire Next Door.
Okay.